Marketing, live show number 246. With me is an esteemed group of gentlemen so far, highly regarded in the industry, leaders in the industry, vanguards in the industry. What other words am I throwing in there? And Kat just joined us. Immediately, the group has raised its level of quality right now.
You don't need us anymore. You don't need us anymore. We'll go.
Kat, may I introduce two friends I've come to thoroughly enjoy talking to, and it's been a pleasure to finally get to meet them. Trist, over with Pegasus, and then his equal partner, Ben, also with Pegasus.
No.
Ed, you already know.
Everything. Share everything.
Kat
Hi,
is
Ed.
the Director of Education at Alcoa.
Yes.
So she is getting us turned on over here so we can get on live on all the channels while we're chatting here. Okay.
Oh, it's good to meet you guys. I heard that you really lit up the show last week, so I just couldn't miss it.
That was Ed. Ed was,
all these new people to the show who aren't used to the fact that even if we agree with each other, we will purposely disagree with each other just to keep the show interesting. I guess it worked. We kept the show interesting.
It definitely does. I think when I called Laura, I was like, yeah, I'd really like to go on there, but if you could just keep me on the right side of Ed, that'd be fantastic. Because he's a mad guy.
He's a mad guy.
No, I called Ed up because Kat, you had reached out to me and said, Ed seemed to be really upset with me.
I was like, oh.
And then you guys did the same thing, and I'm like, well, I'm bringing you all back to the show, man. We're gonna go take on Ed, man.
literally later that day, Lauren and I were like, on a cocktail mixer Zoom together, joking around.
That's what I was like. In my head, I said, "Oh, is this just for ratings? Are they doing this like
yes,
like Bobby Brown type rating?"
Yeah.
No, we usually. I still remember to this day one show in very particular. For some reason, whatever Tim was saying, I was not agreeing with, and I went on this hour-long tirade against what Tim was saying. I mean, I went full tilt into it. I was not having any of Tim's opinion that day or something. I don't know what it was. But, we've had those moments. I mean, we really do. And even still, and I think mentions this, even to the point. But the fun part of it is with the caliber of people that we get to talk to on the show together, you can flip the coin and talk about the other side just as much because you understand both sides of the equation. You're proposing one side, but you understand the objections that are created from that. So you can flip the coin and talk the other side to it. Ed loves doing that. So he may agree with you, but he's got to
as well.
I do work for Flip 2.
I was going to say the clues in the name. All right.
If I'm not flipping constantly, then I'm not correctly representing the brand.
You're not right. Griffin. There is Griff and the best beard to ever grow. I'm sorry, Trist. I'm sorry. The fullness of this man's beard. He is a werewolf.
Again, I was talking to Griff yesterday. He had shaved yesterday. Like he was clean shaven yesterday.
Well, in that case, I can see this is taking me 43 years.
I can't hear you, Griff. I'm trying to mouth read, but the beard is making it so difficult. I can't work out what you're saying.
No, you got no audio going.
Don't shave, Griff.
No.
Griff is like that Play-Doh character. He can just will his beard to grow.
Just squeeze his body.
He's like,
May I introduce Miss Stephanie Smith, founder and what are you, the Maven? Oh, what is you give yourself a really cool title too.
Digital matriarch.
Digital matriarch. That's what it is. But if it comes to brand, she'll kick your ass because she knows everything about brand.
No, if it isn't Ed, it's going to be Stephanie. Ed, I might have to go.
Okay, that should be better.
Yay!
There we go.
Yeah, this is what I call my 7 a.m. shadow. So there we go. How to get the joke out? But hey,
fun fact: Griff actually sounds better on microphone because of the filter effect that his beard causes.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, we already just started about beards. Oh, good gosh.
Well, since we have Ben and Tristen, the rule of the show is they get the first 30 minutes.
Only 30 minutes. We were promised 60.
You get the first 30 minutes without us telling you're wrong, and then the next 30 minutes we will break down point by point
how you were wrong.
How wrong you were.
Hey, Griffin, were you able to get the other link that I sent you this morning?
Yep, yeah, I think Tom's not going to be able to make it this morning, though.
Okay.
I appreciate you sending that on.
Sorry about that.
Lauren thought Mr. Dibbles was your cat.
I only sent you one link. I didn't know. And then I go over and you send back the link and says, no, I really need the link for Tom. I'm like, so I go look at him, I'm like, oh shit, he's the president of the company.
Mr. Dibbles and his kibbles, yeah. Man, I hope he's not watching. That's amazing. That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's just me and my way of not knowing people's names. That's how it works.
It makes perfect sense. Honestly, I probably would have thought the same thing if I saw that email.
I just thought it'd be cute that you and the cat were going to show up. I'm like, sure, I'll send you a link.
Why not? Why not? 2020.
Hey, I've embarrassed myself in worse ways with more important people anyways. What the heck?
Like the first 3 times Kat was on the show and you were trying to say her name.
I refuse to try to say her name because I can never say it right. It's just forever Kat.
I'm still waiting on my plaque also reflecting.
Yeah, I spelled it wrong. I made her plaque and I spelled it wrong. Oh yeah, when I go for it, I go for the full 1,000 points. I don't
right? Honor you and make you feel bad all in one shot.
And just for the record, Tristen, Ben, so you know, after a year of Kat being on the show with us,
This
I
story
tried to
keeps
say her
changing.
full name, and she corrected me after a whole year later. I mean, I think there's some mutual responsibility there. She should have.
There's no mutual responsibility.
For all of that.
Lauren, I love how you keep saying it's Kat that I didn't correct. If KEC was the struggle, we have a much bigger issue at hand here.
Yeah, it was that Lauren refused to call her Kat. He wanted to continue to butcher her name.
Yeah, I tried to say what I thought it was supposed to be, and it isn't and wasn't.
So,
and never had.
do we get like a pronunciation guide, or do we just have to take a stab at it and make an idiot of ourselves?
No, it's Katija.
Which is not hard.
That's right, Lauren, come on.
Syllables. There's a silent H. It makes people scared. I think it might be an American thing though. But.
Actually, it's my bad name. Honestly, everybody's Bob for at least a year, or Debbie. I never know people's names. I know by faces. I know the last thing we talked, but don't ask me your name because I really it doesn't stick.
Yeah, we had a relationship with a partner company called Brand Verity in the UK, and it got a little bit silly. I think he actually, when we started, he called Trish. And was convinced that you're a woman before we actually met, and you could hear the confusion in his voice.
I'm Tris.
Oh, Oh, damn! That explains a lot.
So we told Jonathan every lady's name that began with a J we could think of, but a different one every time we spoke to him.
And that still happens. We've not worked with him for 2 years. Like, how you doing, Jemima, Janine? Yeah, and yeah, I remember the time his boss was on the call as well, and we were referring to each other by the ladies' names, and it just that sort of kicked off the professionalism for the relationship.
Yeah.
So since
I've just written down Katija phonetically.
Yeah,
so
I'm trying to slyly do it with a pencil just so no one notices.
Yeah, here we go.
I appreciate the effort that is going into this.
No problem.
One things that Lauren could have done.
Yes, Tristen, if you could just copy paste the image of that.
Yeah, sure.
Send it to me. Would you? Stick it on the bottom. True to form. I had clients that I actually phonically wrote out their name because I kept saying it wrong as well. I kid you not. It is not just you. It is me. It is. I cannot say people's name right to save my soul unless it's BN over there. And then
Yeah.
I've been called a lot worse, I promise you. Wait until you have a crack at Chris's right name.
I'll tell you, I actually had fun. I used to live in Argentina, and Griffin was not a common name. So when I have to explain it, I finally found the way to explain it, and I had to say, "Oh, Griffin, like como Peter Griffin," and everybody loved it. People would even do the Peter Griffin laugh back at me. They'd be like, "Oh, Peter Griffin, ha ha ha," and they do that. And it was the greatest introduction. I loved it.
I think you should still do that here.
I might
It would be endearing.
That's how you should get introduced every week on this podcast. And, joining us today is Griffin Sandberg. Griffin, like, hey.
all for it.
So since you've been designated guests of honor today by Mr. Ed, Tristen, Ben, What in your complexities of life, meanings of the universe? 2 examples. What do you got?
Ben, over to you, buddy.
I'm going to take a swig out of my Frozen Coke.
Frozen 2. Frozen 2.
Sorry, Frozen 2. God, so I'll take inspiration from the things that Tristen and I talk about, but I'll have to heavily censor them because I mean, Tristen and I have worked together 13 years. So, in the conversations, we often find ourselves finishing each other's
sentences.
Sandwiches?
Come on, man. No, Tristen knows the rules. He knows that the sandwiches are out of bounds.
Yeah, you'll lose a hand, honestly.
Yeah, if you're lucky. And we found ourselves complaining and contrasting this week, whilst on lockdown and trying to run, a family and trying to continue obviously our roles. Complaining about how different companies, the big ones and the small ones, are all responding and how the executive teams are responding and pivoting in these times. The big ones, brands, a lot of the bigger brands seem to be like, we'll take a 10% pay cut, we'll pat you on the head as we walk past, and we really are people first company, etc., etc. It's really easy to see every company is people first until the money dries up, and I think we were just complaining. Oh, if we were in charge, it wouldn't be like that, I'd just fund coupons for everybody. And I think Trist, you found a really good example, didn't you? Was it Expedia?
The Expedia, or the LG one, or the Expedia one.
No, the guys who are taking the pay cut are like, yes, we will take 10%.
Oh yeah, Expedia.
Kneel at the altar.
Yeah, Expedia. Obviously, they've just refinanced. They've got money with B's at the beginning of it. It's huge amounts of debt. There's something like 10 billion, huge eye-watering sums of money. They're saying that they're taking their spend down from what was $1 billion a month down to probably somewhere only at the lowly figure of 256 a month. I mean, who can keep the lights on for that a month? But don't worry, never fear. The executives are taking a 25% pay cut whilst they're furloughing all of their team. It's heartwarming. It really is.
The Vatican are calling out for night for sainthood for them all.
Indeed.
For that kind of money.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was easier for them to make some of this savings because, they cut like 20% of their staff a few months before any of this even happened. And that was after cutting about 15% of their staff a few weeks before that. So
Well, there are, in contrast to what Ben was saying, there are some fantastic companies out there that are doing really, really great things. So I saw on LinkedIn, there was just a chap in the local area here in the UK. He was ringing up about his washing machine. He rang up the company that did it, LG, and his washing machine went out of warranty by about 6 weeks. So he'd had it for 2 years and 6 weeks. He rings him up, out of warranty. He's wanting to get a repair person to come out. Obviously, lockdown, you can't get anybody to come in. You're going to have to go through the official channels. And the person online said, "Oh, you're not going to get anything for weeks and weeks," until they turned around and said, "Well, my wife is a nurse on the COVID ward." They said, "Hang on, bear with me 1 second." Paused. 10 seconds later, come on, somebody will be there today, and it's going to cost you nothing.
Wow.
And LG haven't advertised this. They've not said it. They're not pushing this out as a big thing. This guy goes straight onto LinkedIn, starts putting it everywhere, saying he was flawed, absolutely flabbergasted. That's the difference between, trying to survive and actually making a loyal customer to brand for life. He'll buy LG forever now, whether it's TVs, washing machines, whatever. That's the big difference for me. And I think some hotels, some brands, some organizations, some tech companies, whatever, they've just got the wrong grasp of what you need to do in a crisis.
They've missed the opportunity. Like a lot of companies, I said it maybe a month and a half ago, maybe before all this really kicked off. How you treat your colleagues, clients, and customers in this crisis is going to be remembered long after the word coronavirus has been forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, agreed. I think we're really politically charged right now too. So some of the decisions aren't necessarily even for the business or the people.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. So, like any other vendor in this space, pretty much every single one of our partners has asked for a billing break for the next couple of months. Like most small businesses, we didn't get into the first tranche of the payment protection program. So we just started asking our vendors, can we defer payment until we get this, shirt up, things like that. And so our three biggest expenses are Salesforce, Google, and then our rent, behind payroll. Those are the three biggest things. And going into it, I said to Brian and Gil, my partners, I said, I doubt Salesforce or Google are going to do anything, but our landlord will probably work with us. Both Salesforce and Google, right on top of it. Credits, don't worry about it. You're good. Our landlord, now we wrote a very nice letter saying, hey, is there anything we can do to defer while we're waiting for this? They responded with a legal letter that had resources for us. By the way, the top resources were unemployment resources. So, what kind of message is that sending? Lay off your people and you'll be fine. It was disgusting. So, at this point, I don't care what happens. We're not renewing our lease. We'll be moving, and it's off of principle. And by the way, we wrote hope your team's doing good, all this stuff.
Sure.
There was none of that in the response. Not hope you're doing okay. It's just, here's a letter from our lawyer that we're sending to all tenants.
Just cool.
Yeah. Our invoice will be with you at the end of the month. Thanks.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It is amazing. And you have to echo that a little bit. We're in a small little off building. We only have 5 units in ours. And while we're waiting to see whether we're going to get any loan money or anything, which of course we didn't, depending upon when you paid your rent as to what you could apply for to have the loan canceled based on what you're spending it for. And we asked the landlord, who small business owner, he owns this building, can you just hold our check until we figure out whether we get this money or nothing like that? No problem. Absolutely not. And then when we didn't get the first round, we said, well, if you have to cash, you go ahead. May's coming up, and again, also and so forth. We're going to be asking these things. He says, I'll hold both of them. Don't worry about it. Let's see how this. And this is, again, people that have less. I'm not saying he's not wealthy or anything. He owns a building, for God's sakes. Compared to what you're talking about, that building you're in is a big, huge building. They could easily be doing things like that. And then you see stories like that around the world where landlords of big apartment buildings canceling people. That gets remembered by not just people there, but by the people that they deal business with for the rest of their lives. Compared to people that no, we want our money, and if not, we're going to sue you for it or whatever. Okay.
It's amazing, and people will remember this. People will remember how you treated them. People will remember who was there for them when they needed something. And listen, now is not the time. Now's the time to be human. And understand, listen, I'm not even overly mad that if that's what they had to do, soften the messaging. Soften the messaging of, hey, we're really sorry, but we're in a position where if we need to pay our debt, our debt's not being delayed. We hope you understand. I wouldn't be mad.
Right.
But instead, it being zero concern for us, and here's a letter from our lawyer, and the first 3 lines in there, we put together a list of things you can do. The first 3 lines were about unemployment, which literally is saying lay off your team.
Sorry, go on.
It was just disgusting. It boiled my blood because I was like, oh, especially as someone who I've spent the last month personally sitting on as many customer calls as I can fit into a day. Some days I'm doing 12 or 13 of these customer calls. So our customers know we're here to help you. Yes, service credits, here you go. Here's some strategies, and to then have a company do what I would see as the other end of the spectrum of that is oh my God, how can you be so tone deaf and so blind to humans?
I think it's a shift of responsibility, which is what we're also seeing from the top down. I don't want to make the decision on what you do with your people, so that way I'm not held responsible. So take this news and make that decision on your own, and they could look to you when things go bad.
But it's so short-termistic as well, because I can't remember the exact number, but the phrase goes that you have something good happen to you, you're going to tell 1 or 2 people. You have something bad to you, you're going to tell dozens,
hundreds.
And that message keeps going out. Obviously this is a marketing a discussion that we're talking here almost to a certain degree. You whilst it's a crisis, yes, look at it in the human sense of it, but there is also the aspect of this that, the message that you'll be putting out, because if you can survive this and go through, you've got to think of the future. You've got to think of, great, I got through the immediate short-term crisis here, but what's left of my future? If you completely shot yourself in the foot and there is no future, it's like, well, what's the point? What's the point in doing this? You may as well just lay everybody off, including yourself. Because nobody's going to want to do business with you.
And you hear
Go ahead.
You just see, from Tristan's point, you hear the horror stories of the way companies have laid off, and I think you guys touched on this a couple of weeks ago, like large groups of people on faceless Zoom calls with robo voices telling you, you'll get your unemployment check. Like, that's not a way to reward people for months and years and decades of service in companies.
Oh, my favorite was email. One of the big vendors in our space laid off a bunch of people via email.
Like, that's I mean,
cold.
You're going to have cold. It is really cold, but this is going to come around and bite them in the butt. Like, you're going to have in the future, if you're applying for jobs, or if you're going to apply to work with a company, or you're going to maybe even look at taking on a new client, one of the questions I'll be asking them is, how did you treat your staff? If I'm applying for a job with you, how did you treat your staff when the chips were down? I've read all your fancy culture documentation. It's all very wonderful, heartwarming, brings tears to my eyes. But how many people did you lay off? Did you tighten your belt, or did you tighten everyone else's belt and get rid of them? Right. And there's going to be some uncomfortable conversations, because the big companies that have messed up, it's public, and they've got egg on their face.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've tried something recently.
Wait. Let Kat jump in. She's been trying to jump in.
So go ahead.
I was going to say, Ben, I don't know what your thoughts are. I mean, you just mentioned when you're looking for another job with another company, the market we're going into, I mean, it's going to be highly competitive for every single job. Is there a luxury to even say, hey, how did you treat your people during this time period? Because I want to decide whether or not I want to work with you. I don't know if we have that luxury right now.
Oh, you will, because there are going to be a lot of people who leave the industry because of this situation. They're going to try to make a career change out of hospitality. I think certain positions in hospitality are going to become very hard to staff.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a really good question, Khadija.
Thank you.
So on the other hand, I mean, Khadija, have you talked with owners? I was talking with a couple that did get their PPP funds, and they are trying to hire back people that don't want to come back to work.
Yep.
And, they're saying, it's for safety reasons, but I think part of it in certain places of the country, it has to be that they're making more money, on unemployment. Has that been a topic within a whole?
Yes, we've definitely heard some of that, where folks are making more money off of the unemployment. There's definitely concerns as far as health and safety from the staff standpoint. But the other part that we're really hearing a lot more about right now is the liability to the businesses should their employees come back and there's a resurgence, or there's greater exposure because of the states opening up and guests coming in that may have it. So the focus is shifting to now, will the businesses be held responsible for the decisions that the government is making? I'm hearing much more on that side. Of course, I work with the owners, but definitely those concerns are there with folks not being ready to come back. Some want the money, but they just don't want to deal with the potential health risks.
I was going to say one thing that I've noticed that I've started doing, to Ed's point of being kinder and being more human, is each week I took on some of the suggestions from one earlier webinar of calling people I haven't talked to in a long time, just to say hi. And then the other was I started going over and you're getting sales pitches from people and so forth. And it used to be that if it was unsolicited, most of the times if it was not even related to me, they just picked my name out of a hat or something. I didn't even reply. I took the time now to start replying. And then I also started taking the time that people started trying to use LinkedIn and new ways of trying to reach out to people, and they're stumbling through it and they got misspells and they don't know what to say. I'm just reaching back to them saying, hey, I appreciate your interest in talking with me and so forth. There's nothing really directly that I think that we have anything to do with or whatever, but, keep best effort. And may I suggest, this, and this kind of thing. I'm getting more and more people wanting to connect via LinkedIn or keep communications up, or, they're president of the company. Like there's a salesperson that reached out to me and the president whatever says, you're the first kind letter this guy's gotten since he started doing this. Can we be friends? And I'm like, cool. It's that kind of humanistic what you're saying. And things like, this is the time that you just hey, I appreciate what you're trying to do. No, I can't buy anything right now or whatever, but I respect you trying to keep business going. It reflects in how they react and stuff like that. So yeah.
I think another thing that's come out of this as well is, especially in our industry, there are no walls anymore between companies. There's no. I mean, before you had sort of, these are my ideas, and you can sort of look at them from over there, but no peeking. Now it's just hasn't this gone to hell? How many times do you wake up at night crying? Oh, it's just two last night. Just two. I slept pretty well, to be honest. Yeah, me no. For soaked with tears when I woke up. Like, everyone's in the same really, really terrible boat. And I wish you could sort of censor. I wish I had a beep. Next time I'm going to bring a beep. I'm going to beep myself and say the real word so that you can put it down. Everyone's in the same beeping boat, and it's beeping bad. And I think everyone's sort of coming together, and it's just nice. I've never connected with so many people in the industry as I am with this crisis that's going on, because everyone's knackered. Mm-hmm. Everyone's just sort of like, God, when is this kicking going to end? When we've got people saying, oh, inject yourself with whatever it was that they were suggesting you inject yourself with.
Clorox.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not go down that, because we've only got Ben.
I've already gone over this with you and Tris. I, on behalf of the United States, apologize for our current.
That's a big responsibility.
I can only apologize to these two guys. I can't take on the rest of the room. I tell this, I was like, yeah, this is.
And we probably get the most whacked one-sided story. You get all the extreme stuff that happens over there. What happens over here, so it's probably even worse.
Well, what's even worse is you got our president's weird brother leading. I mean,
doppelganger,
yeah.
Yeah, we've got what you guys would have locked in the attic. Yeah, right. Boris, you're up.
It just never seems to end, and every day that goes past, and I don't know what you sort of like in the US. Like, people are starting to. There's queues forming outside burger chains. Like, it's a nice burger, guys. I get that. I'm a fan of Five Guys like everyone else, but I don't want it with a sprinkling of COVID, and you just don't know. Like, it's not that good. And I saw, it was a great thing on some social media that my wife was telling me about. It was a meme of Charles Darwin. And they said, feel like going outside? Natural selection. Sure, go ahead. Shake everyone's hand. You'll be fine.
Let's see how that works.
Yeah. And it just, in our industry, it's just one thing after another. And the optimism that was, it's going to be a V curve bounce back became it's going to be a U, like a gradual U. And then it's like, it's just somebody writing W's. Just a line of W's with a Q every now and again, just to spice things up.
I know from when I first started trying to put all this together, I mean, Kat, when we first started doing the first webinars in the first week of this happened back in March, even in one day we changed from what we were talking about one day to then segmenting the conversation to those that were still employed, just lost their jobs, or were uncertain about their jobs. And then they fractioned even farther. Well, now on the rebound side, as people start trying to think about what they're going to do in preparation for this, that conversation keeps fragmenting as well. At first it was like, this is what we as an industry are going to do. Now it's more like, no, from a regional perspective, we have to look at what's going to roll in first, what it's not going to roll in first, and then what happens when it comes back, and what areas and what feeder markets do you not choose. So now I'm fractioning all the variations of, well, this is going to be our launch based on the feeder markets that are less impacted. And then start doing math that way. It's like, well, how much are we going to be spending in certain markets if we don't have other markets that we can rely upon, because they're still at a point where they're not going to be able to be engaged. I don't want people from XYZ region, because at that time there might still be a quote hotspot, which is a weird word to use these days, But
isn't this the point where somebody needs to disagree? So maybe I should just disagree with that.
think you should inject.
I'm going to disagree, Lauren, there, because I just think people in America be crazy and are wanting to get to hotels as quick as possible, so everything's going to be fine.
You guys on one of the beaches in Florida, and you just It was like a swarm of just angry.
Hey, what's wrong with belly button Jello shots? Whoa!
Whoa!
Do you guys just get Fox over there? I'm just curious. What exactly is the exposure we're doing?
We get the. I appreciate we've not really touched on hospitality at the moment, but we just get the bad news. We don't get
just get the bad news. That lasts forever, as we stated, right?
Right.
Earlier this show.
Our news is really great because it's all like UK, England, a little bit of Brexit. That's dying off a little bit now, thank God. And then all of a sudden it'd be, and in other news, this is what Trump's done now.
Yeah. Every day at 5 p.m, we have like the UK government gives out this call. Oh, today, that's what we're doing about coronavirus. And then it follows up with some, and then lighter news. This guy over here, he tried to eat a puppy.
He's now.
Yeah, it's not the wall. Yeah, don't worry. That's old news, guys. Old news.
So, what have you heard anything about Georgia and our reopening? Because let me tell you, I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and there's so many jokes internally, just within the state, and then outside of the state, with the very poor decision making that went on from our governor.
So is it on a state by state basis, or is it done federally? So
can't be done federally.
Should be done.
It can't.
Be done federally.
No, it can't. It's actually against the way we're structured as a nation. You would actually have to. The federal government would have to declare martial law, bring in the military, and strip the states from their ability to make decisions, which would cause a war.
Everyone has guns. We can't do that.
Yeah. So that's actually the interesting thing is the United States could not do a national lockdown ever without permanently damaging the union.
I've watched House of Cards. It happens all the time.
Again, guys, that's what we get. Like House of Cards, Breaking Bad. Everyone's got a meth lab in a caravan. Yeah. Everything we get from Netflix.
Madam Secretary. Because obviously you can fix every political problem in an hour-long show.
Of course.
And solve it. Yeah.
All eyes on Georgia, all eyes on Vegas too, on the hotel side.
Vegas, I think, is going to be an interesting case study because here's the thing. Notice Vegas was like pretty good about like, we're going to shut down, no problem, until it started to come out that if you're a big company and you take federal aid, you're going to get persecuted, and then all of a sudden the casinos were like, we have to open.
Yeah.
Like if we can't take aid, we can't continue to stay closed is really what I think is happening there. And I will say though, the actual planning, I think it's some of the best planning we're probably going to see from down to a level of detail. I don't know if you saw like Wynn or a couple of other really interesting plans for reopening that have come out of Vegas. They're super detailed.
Yeah. I looked at Wynn's and they were like everything from like a security guard's going to meet you at the valet and, and how often they're going to clean the surfaces like on a clock. And it was awesome.
Yeah. My favorite part was Circus actually is going to have security guards in the bathrooms forcing people to wash their hands.
I missed that.
I'm joking. I'm sorry.
With such a straight face.
I think Circus has to clean.
Here's the thing. It could be the one time you could harass your guests and they wouldn't talk about it. Because who wants to be the guy to be mad at the person who told them not to wash their hands? Because first, then you have to admit you didn't wash your hands,
and then you have to admit which one was it. Right. This is a severity case here.
What happens if it isn't the full 20 seconds? Are you penalized?
Yeah, did you sing the full Happy Birthday song twice?
I believe
you're missing one verse.
I believe they're going to shoot you with a beanbag. It's non-lethal.
Yeah.
Right.
But it does bring up a couple of two conversations. I've just seen in some like long length articles of things of the valuation of currency, whether that has to be realigned, because if restaurants have to minimize their ability to feed people internally and to feed people with the current structure they have and the cost that they have, either the value of currency has to go down, or the cost of things have to go down, and for it to take effect, or you're dealing with loss of privacy and security issues because you're going to have to surrender who you are more generally for things, so that you can be identified accurately as to whether or not what part you play. Are you able to travel or not able to travel? Do you have it? Don't have it? These kind of, and then getting into hotel rooms, I think technologies as to the keyless entry systems totally amped up now. So too is recognition without having to engage with somebody. Being able to identify yourself in a much more deeper way, which means data issues where if you're doing biometrics, which is the thing I would fear most of people stealing, because I could never claim myself if I myself has already been duplicated biometrically, So there's a lot of technical things about this that.
Well, but that's going to happen because, when there are massive tragedies, that is the time to push things that otherwise the public would not welcome.
Right.
The conversation on using facial recognition in hotels for the purpose of, making the experience better was not one that people were freely talking about as a good thing, because that it's going to get misused. Now, all of a sudden, facial scanning and things like that for touchless check-in, they're just like, yeah, this is why we're doing it. And it's like, no, it's not. Although I will say for restaurants, I was looking at the contact tracing that restaurants in China have started putting in place where, everyone who eats at the restaurant is literally giving their information and everything. Brilliant marketing tactic. Because, most restaurants don't have much of a marketing database because they don't know anything about the people who come and go. But now, hey, by the way, just in case there's an outbreak, you need your name and email address. Check the box right there. Thank you.
Well, that even goes to the whole Google, Apple tracking thing at this point, whether you were where you were compared to where everybody else was, whether, admittedly you were near someone that was already infected or not infected. It changes the scope of our individualities to some extent.
But that tracking already existed and was already there. That's not new. It's just people are starting to realize that. Because have you seen the videos of showing how people moved from Fort Lauderdale Beach into the United States?
Yeah.
That is freely accessible architecture. Every mobile phone is being tracked. Your personal identifiable information is supposed to be stripped from it. However, there's enough breadcrumbs that you could actually piece back a profile to the device.
Well, that was always the scary part, even when I was playing agency in Dallas, is that when a couple of different vendors came through proposing different methodologies of tracking, it was very easy to see the triangulation capability of just taking 2 or 3 of them and saying, okay, I can get phone tracing with you, I can get location-based tracing with you, and I can get accuracy validation with you. Oh, geez, all of a sudden I'm not talking to Avatar Ed, I'm talking to Ed, and I know where Ed's at anytime Ed's anywhere, and I can ping him for what I want to ping him directly.
No, it's just a basic Chrome connection. You have everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
So when this is all over and we return to normality sometime in 2027, do you think there'll be an appetite from consumers to, or do you think it'll be a push to backtrack on this technology? You guys don't need faceless, or do you think it'll just be, we're so used to it now, it's so part of it, and there's no need for us to give up the convenience of being able to check in with a faceless kiosk?
Let me just ask you a different question. Do either of you have a voice command service in your house, like a Alexa or anything?
No, don't say that. She'll start talking.
So that right there is proof that people don't care about privacy. Full well that those devices are listening and logging, and yet you still have them.
Yeah,
because of the convenience.
No one's ever going to listen to any of my conversations.
I was going to say, all it's going to hear is my 2 sons arguing about which episode of Peppa Pig to watch next. So, good luck NSA on that one.
Oh no, I'm not even talking about the government misuse of that technology is not my concern. It's the corporate misuse of that technology. All these companies are one executive away from doing evil things, right? The wrong executive gets into the wrong division, and all of a sudden they're doing some very evil things with the trust that the consumer has with them.
Yeah, but at that point they will have created AI, and I, for one, will welcome our robot overlords. So I'm going that way,
Yeah.
So you're not happy when Will Smith figured out that it was Lucy that was in charge, and
So, with some of this different technology, we've been so focused with COVID and, coming out of it. At the same time, just tossing it your way, but the existence of human trafficking is still going on. There's been some lulls here and there in different markets, but the two markets that are starting to reopen, Atlanta and Las Vegas, and Florida in certain parts, are hubs. Those are all major hubs.
Well, South Florida, I think, is going to be closed for a bit, so that'll be a bit of a break because Miami-Dade is in really bad shape still. Yeah. You're not going to see that open quickly. That's like they have over half the cases of the state.
Well, they had almost all the cases when it first started burgeoning.
Yeah, well, because, you lock down New York, but you don't really lock it down. You let them all leave. A lot of them went to South Florida.
Yeah, so, all of the surrounding states, too, of like
York, Connecticut, Rhode Island. Yeah, they all had huge issues with outbreak because of the movement of people. But the human trafficking side of it, and I almost wonder, did it continue even in the closed down status?
I posed that question too for to Best, that's the company that we work with, and we're hosting a webinar next week on updates. But to my surprise, the business was still going, not business as usual, but it was still there. The demand was still there. So people, if folks are ambitious about McDonald's sandwiches, they'll be ambitious about whatever else they want.
Mm-hmm. I think there's many things that are happening during this very, very crazy time now that that's getting buried in news cycles that would otherwise dominate much more. I mean, take the mass shooting in Canada for example. I mean, that was barely a flash in the pan thing. That didn't
even make the news down here.
Yeah,
it did. That was it.
Yeah, it was so very brief. Yet such a huge tragedy for the country. General day-to-day things we're seeing. I remember reading something. It's a little while back now. I think probably the beginning of lockdown. It was saying about the accident emergency entrance, the ER entrance that were coming in the UK had dropped because people were worried about catching coronavirus, that they weren't going to the hospital when they would normally go when they really needed medical attention. And because of that, we're seeing, huge tragedies of, loss of life or serious illnesses that could have been caught that would then lead to much worse situations because people were worried about the coronavirus. It's almost...
And some of that news I think is being withheld on purpose, and not for an evil purpose. It's to stop people from doing the wrong thing with that statement, so I feel like the governments have had to walk a fine line on, instilling the right amount of fear without overstoking it, instilling the right amount of hope without over pushing that. If you really think about from a communication standpoint, what all governments have had to do, what line they've had to walk, because in general, the mass of humanity makes poor decisions, makes very poor decisions. And so, when you think about that, like someone somewhere is thinking through like, okay, what stats do we try not to bring up? Well, let's try not to bring up, the stats of how many people are dying because they're not getting medical treatment for unrelated issues, and why? Because we want as many people staying away, from the hospital as possible, because hospitals spread disease. I mean, it's a known thing.
It's actually the opposite in the UK. That's how I came across the message. It was on the BBC News website. They were actually, medical practitioners were saying, if you have a medical emergency, please do come in, because they were actually seeing a 25% dip in, ER cases coming in the UK. So they're saying that we have capacity, come in. And we've got all of these other wards that are specifically for coronavirus. You'll go one way, they'll go another, and never the two shall meet, hopefully.
I wonder what's more pressing in the U.S., though. Is it the fear of getting coronavirus by going to the hospital, or is it the fear of being a lifetime in debt for not having insurance, too?
Yeah, the fear of coronavirus or
no combo.
Yeah.
Well, currently, what is it, between approximately in New York alone, it was 200 people a day are dying at home. That is not going into the coronavirus numbers. That number was maybe 2 weeks ago. So I'm sure it's escalated since then. But under the same premise that folks don't want to go into the ER and get sick. And I mean, our doctors are saying, hey, if you don't have extreme symptoms, one, we're not even going to test you, but two, just stay home for 2 weeks and see how it goes. So yeah, it's increasing that number of folks who may just die at home. And if they don't get to test them, it doesn't count as a COVID death.
Right. Yeah. Right. Now, the other side of this is a great time to release any bad news that you have to release as a business. Like, no one talked at all about Marriott's latest credit card breach. Like that like they disclosed it and there wasn't a peep. Like, there wasn't a peep. No one like cared. So if you're a company that, has been holding back some issues, like, now's the time. Like, you get a free pass right now.
Ed, it sounds like you're the best company here, Ed. If you want to get something off your chest, buddy, we're all ears. No problem.
Well, it has to do with Lauren.
Yeah, there was some breach with the PPP applications too.
Well, that is a place, the PPP is a place where you don't want to mess around, is what we've learned. I don't know. Did any of you see the latest uproar about Ashford?
No.
So it turns out, like, from what I can see, and I'm going to use the word allegedly because I've not been able to see a lot of news on it, but it turns out Ashford somehow ended up with the largest amount of PPP.
It's like 50 million or something, right?
Yeah, over 50 million.
Yeah.
And so they're being crucified on the internet because they also furloughed 95% of their workers.
Whoa.
And so, Ashford's a massive publicly traded REIT with billions of assets.
Yeah.
And they tend to own very expensive assets like Ritz-Carlton's and, really high-end assets. Now, listen, I don't think anyone could have seen that the public outcry was going to be what it was. I also don't think anyone thought our government was going to goof around with replenishing this fund, because if the fund didn't run out, I don't think any of these companies would be getting their butts kicked. I think it would be, hey, it's not really right. You need to pay it back. We're not going to forgive as much for you, and no harm, no foul. But the bottom line is the majority of actual small businesses got left in the cold because you had massive publicly traded entities that have access to capital. They can go raise debt easily, where most small businesses can't even get a line of credit right now. So, that uproar, I think you need to avoid as a company because you're being seen as someone who took a place in line of someone who actually needed it. So, I wouldn't put that bad news out. If you're a big company that took a big PPP and you probably shouldn't have, you should quietly pay it back.
But I think the difference, it won't hurt Ashford as bad as like some of the restaurant groups, because Ashford to the normal, like, to like the normal person, they're like, what is Ashford? They don't, they recognize Marriott and Hilton or Ritz, but they're not going to be like, I'm going to abstain going from XYZ restaurant chain because they can't even they don't even understand what the Ashford type entity is. And it says 53 million.
53 million on something that was supposed to have a 10 million cap.
Oh, when you have enough LLCs, it's just like shuffling a deck.
Yeah, but in the questionnaire for the PPP, it asks who owns you and what the related business entities of that ownership exist. So sure, you disclose that. The question is did you disclose everything? And that's the other thing. If you took a PPP and you weren't affected by this, understand part of the application process was you attesting that you had substantial damage to your business as part of what's going on with COVID-19. If you didn't, you've committed a federal crime. It's fraud, and it's federal fraud. And there are now politicians, believe it or not, in the state of Florida, who would have thought, that are actually already trying to prepare task force to go and review after the fact everyone who took a PPP.
Well, something I didn't realize until the other day is there was a sliding scale for how much the banks made based on the size of the loan. So banks were encouraged to give larger loans because they made a larger percentage. which didn't help any of the little guys at all. And I don't think I had that understanding until recently.
I wasn't just corporate.
So just in case there's anyone on the call who doesn't understand the intricacies of the PPP facility over in the US, I mean, obviously there's some listeners who are going to be in that bucket. What is it?
So it was a program as part of a wide sweeping attempt for the government to shore up our economy. And they created these buckets of attempts to keep people paid. One was shoring up unemployment by adding above and beyond what the state's unemployment insurance covers for someone when they lose their job. It adds another $600 to that kitty a week. And so that's the, get it out to the people. That's why you heard us talking about employees not wanting to come back. In some states that actually have good unemployment, when you add that $600 to it, they're making 120%, 130% of their normal earning on unemployment now. Now, the state of Florida, that's not the case. We have like the worst unemployment. It's $275 a week. Which is barely livable. Like you're not even going to cover your insurance for that. Anyways, so there's that phase. Then there was this small business phase. And the idea in the small business phase was if we deploy to you enough capital to pay 8 weeks of payroll, all payroll expenses, medical benefits, all of that, plus give you a little bit extra so you can pay things like interest on debt, you can pay your lease and your utilities. If you take that and you spend it on those things and you keep your head count at what it was pre-COVID, the majority of that money will be forgiven. And then whatever's left is a 1% interest loan. Now, on top of that, for small businesses, any small business that had an SBA loan, so the SBA, the Small Business Administration, is a government entity that helps give capital to business owners to be able to build businesses. And normally the government covers, they personally guarantee a portion of the loan to make it possible for entrepreneurs to get capital that they normally wouldn't be able to get. So if you had an SBA loan, the government is paying for 6 months of your payments. So not deferring them. 6 months of your payments are being paid. So that made up the small business package. And the small business package was loosely identified as under 500 employees. There really weren't a huge amount of other, like you weren't owned by a investment grade organization. So you weren't owned by a private equity group. Really it's substantial. Like for a business like Flip2, it will help us weather all of the capital we've lost by helping our customers. And so, it's a big deal. So that means we haven't laid off anyone. We're not going to lay off anyone. We're going to continue. It's, so for us, it will do exactly what was intended. And then above that, there was a large business bailout fund. So that's for really big companies. So the airlines have come to the government, the cruise lines have gone to the government, other businesses, and that was another, tranche of money. And so the whole idea was deploy money in different ways with the hope that it gets to as many people as possible, with the hope that on the other side of this, the majority of the economy is not winded coming out of it. They're at where they were before going into it.
We've got similar things over in the UK. I think one of the biggest differences, from what it sounds like, when you furlough someone in the US, you don't pay them, they don't work, they just sort of sat there waiting, raring to go. In the UK, when the Chancellor of the Exchequer, so the guy who holds the money of the company, released, I think it was 4 weeks ago, he said for the first time in history, the UK government will pay the salaries of all your staff. If you furlough them, don't let them off, furlough them, and we'll pay 80% of their salary up to £2,500 a year.
Wow.
Sorry, £2,500 a month, which is just above the average salary, I think, in the country. So there's no real reason for a UK company to get rid of anybody in this. Just furlough them, take a seat, spend time with your family. It's glorious weather in England at the minute. So enjoy it, fire up the barbecue, and we'll see you in September, October, November, December. So it's really interesting to see how the different, and there's been money made available in rate relief, like the payments businesses have to make if they've got premises, etc. It's very interesting to see how the different governments are responding to it. Like some of them are trying to buy their way out of a problem, and some of them seem to just be trying to feed money into the right places. And I wouldn't necessarily have said this about a Conservative government usually, but they sort of seem to have got this one pretty right.
There was a Statista graph going round about all of the presidents or heads of country, heads of state that were how they were faring up with regards to this current crisis, and the head of state that was faring the most was ours, believe it or not, Boris Johnson.
He was for 2.5 weeks. I mean, what's he done?
You just stole my thunder.
Sorry, man.
That's why he's faring so well.
He was so poorly thought of that even the slightest change makes him look brilliant. And the fact that he hasn't spoken to the country for 3.5 weeks, he can't really mess it up. So, it's.
But I'm curious, does the UK have like a traditional unemployment program outside of what's happening right now?
Yes, but it's nowhere near. It probably makes Florida look like Scrooge McDuck. Like it is absolutely, it's pennies. It really is not something to live on.
Do companies pay into this unemployment fund?
No, you're sort of through national insurance. Yeah. So our healthcare and our healthcare and unemployment is funded by national insurance contributions made by companies and by employees. So yes, everybody pays a little bit in, and the people that need to be supported by the system get it, but not in like great, huge, swathing chunks of revenue. No, it's not supported like that. And obviously, we don't have the state by state issues. We just have England broadly separated into north and south. If Stuart was on the call, I'd rib him about that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, there is a rule about our show that we never really shared with you.
Another one. That's a surprise. Lauren, go on. What's this one?
If nobody makes the show that normally makes the show, it's open season to pick on them. So
okay. Well,
yeah. You see, at first, I thought for sure you were both from New Zealand.
Sure.
I mean, because we know Stuart hails from Papua New Guinea.
He's been from South Africa. He's been from New Zealand. We pick on him every time. It's like, so what's going on in Australia these days? He rolls with it.
I still don't get his accent. I don't understand how he speaks. He's a mishmash of all these different things, and sometimes he'll sound like Crocodile Dundee, and then he'll sound like just like a regular American. And
because he's in South Carolina and has been in South Carolina for quite some time. So I mean, it's bound
New Zealand of the States. Like, what is that?
It is. I mean, so the southern accent is very deep in most of Georgia, most of South Carolina. But then not in spots. Like you don't hear it as much in Atlanta. I don't. Like when I'm in Atlanta, I think there's so many people who aren't from Atlanta. And then Florida is one of the most backward states that culture-wise, it's the only state that the further south you get into the state, the further north the population is similar to. Whereas the very north part of our state is the deep south.
Yeah, Egypt is like that.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah. More north, south you go. The south, more north you go.
Yeah,
perfect sense. I'm clear.
I accidentally went to Florida for a conference or like a sort of event we were putting on with a management group at spring break. Accidentally, so that was my first view of Florida was spring break, and I remember going out, like taking out for some drinks after the event, and I can best describe it as children trying to get served at bars. And I said, it's 7:30. It's way past your bedtime. What are you doing? You're not going to get a martini. Get home. Do your mum and dad know where you are? But they said, this is it for spring break. It's part of the call.
So you must have been in the Panhandle then.
I wouldn't know. I couldn't remember where we were. Somewhere down Miami somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Southeastern stuff still, yeah. Yeah, no, that was our shining moment again, as always. Is everyone piling onto the beach, and then when they're told the beaches were closed, they piled on the boats and went to the beaches that you can only get to on boats. Same difference.
In every crisis, there's innovation and ingenuity.
Right.
Not really.
Yeah. How to go around the rules. Hey, there was one article I wanted to throw in that Robert did share with us that I know you guys didn't get a chance to see, so I'm going to throw up the link for it. But it's talking about minibars and the change of what we're going to be doing in the hotels themselves.
So I'm actually going to. Oh yeah, are you jumping off? I have to jump too.
You beat me to it. Yeah, I'm on kid duty coming up, so I'm gonna go.
Good luck.
Play some Legos probably, but I did want to share. There's a Live Long Lodging's putting together a hospitality conference next week.
Yeah, so for $5, which was a great price, I thought.
Yeah,
for the amount of people that are on it. Yeah,
it's a half day. It's got 60 different speakers / panelists. They're shoving a lot into a half day, so I'll drop a link in the chat. But it might be something.
Ed's doing the same thing. I gotta do split screens for about an hour because Ed's doing his HSMI Central Florida presentation.
Oh no!
That day, Lily brought that up. She brought that up.
She's like, yeah, we're going on at the same time, and I'm like, we need to coordinate.
Yeah, so, and Andressa Chapman, Mike Metzger, right? Like the whole crew. Is that the one?
Well, that's just our panel. So
wow, okay.
Mike and Andressa and Susan Berry, we're all in the same panel.
Awesome.
But that's only part of the lineup. So, they have all different types of. I'm really excited to see they have a panel about what's going to happen with the students that are in university right now that are getting ready to graduate. So they're bringing in some, I think, students and professors. And so I think that's going to be a unique one on there as well. So
very cool.
And Kat, I'll see you in about an hour and a half, I guess-ish. We're going to do a test run on some other stuff. So we'll have, so I'll catch you for that. And any webinars you guys have coming up?
Actually, the one that we're working on, I'll announce because it's the first AHOA webinar I'm actually moderating the panel on, which is why I was like, let's do this as big as possible. But we're having Cecil Chip Rogers, president and CEO of HNLA. Actually, I just got a note from Vijay Patak. He's the president of the Witness Group. He's unable to make it, unfortunately. But we do have Mehul Patel confirmed, CEO and chairman of Newcrest Image. But we're doing a panel on what hoteliers are talking about right now as they transition into recovery, how they can prepare themselves, what's going on from the legislation side of things. So I'm sure it'll be a really interesting panel, and we'll get a lot of audience questions. But that is a big one for next week, Thursday, 1:30 to 2:30 Eastern Standard.
Thursday's going to be a busy day.
Thursday's going to be a busy
That's what I
day.
was thinking when you guys were mentioning yours. Because nobody will be attending each other's.
Well, I know I'm not going to do any webinars on Wednesday other than watching them. There.
And we need attendee numbers.
Yeah.
Will these all be recorded too?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Well, when you share the link up, I'll make sure I push it around on the other platforms as well too. And of course,
Ben and I might have quite a bit of time, so Ben, you can go to one and I'll go to the other.
Definitely.
Tristen and Ben, AHOA just created our 72nd COVID-19 webinar. So if you have this handy time, in our resources here.
Yeah, well, open to joining and getting involved and getting some interesting conversations. Who knows? We might even start arguing.
I hope you do. It makes things more interesting.
No, you don't, Ed. Sorry. I'll work on that. That wasn't natural.
Yeah, timing's off a little bit there, but
Steph, before you run, Cogwheel Marketing, people to find you where?
Yeah, follow me on LinkedIn, Stephanie Smith. Wow, I almost said my maiden name. I've been married for a long time. Or you can find me at Cogwheel Marketing.
That's lockdown for you. Yeah, come on, we're going back. Don't worry, it's fine.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Talk to you later.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Bye, Steph. And Kat, where to find you and AHOA? What's going on with that? To find things on AHOA?
So in that chat, I posted the AHOA COVID-19 resource page, so folks can check that out. It has our 72 webinars, as mentioned, along with a whole bunch of other resources. We have a page. AHOA works directly, or we have a DC office that works with folks on the Hill, so we get a lot of great legislative updates quickly, and we're also able to speak on or fight on the behalf of hotel owners a little bit more directly. But definitely check that out. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, Khatija Kat Mohammad. And if you want to email me and continue a conversation, you need help with anything that I can help you with, you can reach me at kat.m.speaks@gmail.com.
Thanks, Kat.
Fantastic.
Have a great weekend.
Great meeting you guys and seeing you guys again. Finally, it's been a few weeks, but yeah, enjoy the weekend, and hopefully we have more uplifting news to talk about next week.
That's right.
That would be nice, wouldn't it? Yes. Look forward to seeing you a little bit about that.
Okay.
So speaking of next week, I'm going to brag a bit. I sourced us a really interesting guest speaker for next week. I actually have someone coming in who runs a remediation company. He's going to talk about what it actually takes to correctly deep clean areas.
Okay.
And what's involved in that. I thought that angle would be interesting because a lot of the marketing audience needs to get a bit of education on that, because it is going to become part of the communication strategy, at least early on, where you need to talk about what steps you're taking and not misrepresent it. Because that could get you in a little bit of trouble.
Now, Tristen, I take a little offense away. Ed said he was going to have some really interesting guests.
Yeah, I was going to pick up on that.
And by the way,
it's interesting.
That's how you start a fight. if you're going to do it in a clever way, you got to do it.
Ed, you need to come to the north of England. We'll show you how we finish one.
With a beer, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm reading this article now. Upon arrival, so 4 seasons, yada yada yada. The room is left vacant for a full 24 hours after a guest checks out. Then a deep cleaning crew comes in with hazmat suits and does a deep clean, and then the room is left empty for another 24 hours. How are the hotels going to work this from an operations perspective?
That's the thing.
I mean, and here's my thing. If you wanted to do something to that level, is you could have the room for the first hour, you put an ozone machine in the room, and you put a large UV light in the room. That will take care of most things in about an hour. Then you go through and do a good clean, and the room will be fine. Because ozone will kill a lot, including people. Fun fact, a lot of people don't realize that. But that a UV light would take care of most surfaces. And so, you did that. I mean, the whole keeping a room empty for 24 hours, it's overkill, and it's also misunderstanding of what it actually takes.
Yeah. I was looking into the UV light stuff, just out of curiosity and trying to educate myself on it. I think there need to be changes made in anywhere really where there's a lot of footfall and not constant cleaning. You're going to find a lot more doors that can be opened with your foot rather than pushing them, and toilets that maybe you can flush by stamping on a lever or motion activated. People are going to be so much more aware now of what they're touching and who they're touching, and has that person wash your hands, have they sung the happy birthday song. So there's so many. It's not just the rooms that are going to have to be considered. It's the layout and the flow guest in I guess in a hotel in this instance as well. People are going to. I mean, I'm more aware now of walking around. Even my children, don't touch that wall. Don't touch that blade of grass. Don't touch me.
Stop licking things.
Stare at this UV light. So I'm really interested. To know how they're going to try and implement those 24-hour, 48-hour. Because what do you do? What do you do with your rooms? What do you book it off as?
No, but it's typical overkill, though, isn't it? It's the usual knee-jerk reaction. It's going to be, trying to desperately get people back to stimulate, room nights and getting people back. But alongside that, there's also going to be innovation. I already know there's companies out there that have been working on, like a hands-free, vaporized cleanser of a room. It's been designed for hospitals. It's been around for about a decade now, but it never really got picked up because there's never been the right sort of circumstances.
Well, and the problem is one, steam alone is enough, but putting chemicals in that, it's going to cause cancer. Because you're talking about aerating chemicals.
But I think
so you do have to be careful on how you use that type of vaporizer technology and make sure that the people using it are using the correct safety equipment, or there's just going to be 10 years from now class action.
It's not even just that; it's about the durability of what it's being landed on too. I mean,
right.
Quartz doesn't do well with being put in stuff, and countertops and whatever and things like this. There's going to be a corrosion value to it and all. But there is, to Trist's point, I think there's going to be some innovation on some things. There's also going to be a practicality that comes out of this, because there's going to be one first decision I think is going to be made is how long do we have to worry about the extremism before this gets in another year and a half or so into a vaccine form? Where
it's not even going to be that long. It's going to be when all the final data's in.
Just give me round numbers to it. But at that point, then, do we go back to the way of the flu? Yes, it kills people. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's bad. But no, I wasn't really as worried about this stuff back then as I am now. And now
the first swear word on the show, by the way, was Lauren.
Yeah, I was talking about beating myself, Lauren, and you're the host.
Sorry, yeah, just
Lauren.
The girls are gone, so I just thought I'd throw it in there. Just what the hell?
Oh yeah, because they strike me as delicate flowers.
Delicate conversation, very delicate people. Yes,
yeah.
But so there's going to be. We'll probably react to it. We'll probably have extreme reaction because there is that. Ed, I think you pointed out either last show or the week before. There is going to be the extreme people, and probably like me, that are still going to be overtly concerned about this for a long time, compared to people that are early. Like, I don't care. Let me hop in the Winnebago. Me and my guns are going to go somewhere.
Something too that I think is actually a bigger problem is you're actually. Of all the places you go as part of a trip, the hotel is the place that you stand the least chance to actually contract it. So first of all, early studies have already started coming out that the majority of people who did contact tracing, they actually got it in a tightly enclosed space with poor air circulation. I don't know. Can you think of anything like that? Oh, airplanes.
New York subway?
Public transportation was a huge factor. Now think about all the most heavily hit areas on outbreak. Oh man, it happened to be Europe in areas that had massive public transportation. It happened to be New York City, LA, all places that have massive dependency on public transportation. These are the things that as data comes out, we'll better understand how to effectively cut back on the chances of infection. Because they found in the contact tracing in the study I was reading about in China is that only like 2 or 3 people total could they contact trace that they actually caught it well outdoors.
Really? I think more pained about the retail. I feel more pained about the retail. I mean, hotels, at least we have a functional capability of proving cleanliness. We have the means of showing that we can. Matter of fact, most average consensus is that hotel rooms tend to be cleaner than your own bedroom because it's perpetually cleaned. Maybe, not. Anyway, retail, you go try on a piece of clothing. What happens then? Usually just got put back into circulation. Now all of a sudden, oh, Christ, it's got to go off and be sanitized and everything else, blah, blah, blah. And how much inventory do you keep actually on hand now? Yeah. All the sizes, flavors, colors, blah, 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 compared to this is what it looks like behind the glass. Mm-hmm. Looks nice, right? Let's go do a 360 image of you so we can take into that big old belly of yours that we got to get a bigger T-shirt, and then we'll go over and send it to you.
They call it COVID. They call it COVID belly. But, Griffin, are you ducking out? I see you writing a note here.
I am now. My computer's freezing up on me.
Oh, is that what we did? I thought we said something, that offended you or something, and you were like, "I'm out of here."
We talked cleanliness and sanitation. My hipster self probably doesn't have much of input anyways. But no, I'm gonna. Am I coming through?
No, you're frozen, but we hear you. You're frozen in a really good.
It's totally
you look good. You look good. It's not any silliness at all.
I can see it now.
There we go.
I'll leave a link. I'll be back on next week. Always a pleasure seeing all of you here.
Griffin, thanks for being in this. Hey, if they want to know about Screen Pilot, where do they go? Don't leave that.
I'll put that in the link. We have a resource center for some inspiration data, many different platforms and avenues to not platforms, but avenues to kind of go down depending on what you're looking into each day on COVID-19 resources, the here, the now, the future of planning for properties. So I will post that here, and then I got a busy Thursday next week.
Yeah. Hey, don't share with your boss that what I thought. Just apologize I didn't send him the second link.
I will absolutely share with Mr. Dick. Sorry, I can't promise anything there. He has to hear it.
Before you go, honestly, I swear your face froze on there, and then when it came back, I'm sure your beard was slightly longer.
And I didn't get the memo about the uniform for the call, which is clearly
the color.
Blue grey top with a couple buttons stuck on like a hipster. Yeah,
man.
Oh.
I could dig one out from when I was 20. It won't fit.
Hey, pleasure, everyone.
Talk to you. Thank you.
Bye, Griffin.
So what's funniest about this, Lauren, and I'm more saying this to make up to Ben for giving him a hard time about the Frozen 2 cup, is when you said Mr. Dibbles, I instantly thought of Mr. Dinkles, which is a character from the Trolls movie.
Oh.
It's the little pet worm that the guy's always holding and trying to talk. Yeah.
I've definitely buried myself 6 foot under. He's never coming on the show.
Tom's got a good sense of humor. He'll get it. It's pretty funny. But, one thing, if I was a hotel, rather than focusing on those things, you can do some simple yet expensive things to actually put a pretty big dent in the potential spread. One is inside your HVAC systems, installing UV light and air ionizers. So an air ionizer actually has more benefit than just it actively kills viruses, airborne viruses. It also causes dust to fall faster. So it actually makes it easier to keep the place clean when you ionize the air. And you can install those in your HVAC systems with a UV light. That cuts the transmission of airborne viruses by a substantial percentage. And so, if I was a hotel, I'd be looking at investing in that type of technology because, quite honestly, even though it'll be expensive, it's not as expensive as you think it is. And it's something you can market that also doesn't sound like you were a dirty, gross place before. Because that's the fine line you got to walk when you're talking about your new cleanliness standards, is you need to be careful to not make, smart people go, well, wait a sec. If you're doing all this now, what was it before? How bad was it? So that's my penny.
Now, Ben, this might change your perspective of our friendship for future times, but I was that geek on the plane that had the ionizer around his neck, the mask on his face, the thing over his eyes watching TV with a little misty thing to humidify the air, and had a little black light that I shot at everything to see if anybody, did something they shouldn't have done while sitting in the chair, just so you know. So,
and yet, at the same time, just real quick, to counter that, he would then walk into the hospitality event and proceed to give everyone a hug, completely
contrast going on,
undoing any potential avoidance from the trip there. He wants to catch it directly. Like, he wants it through skin-to-skin contact, or he doesn't.
It's the only way to catch it.
Don't breathe across the room. Give me a hug, goddamn.
He is the Joe Biden of hospitality.
Oh no! Hey, that's in there. Just like Stuart tall guys. So not many big guys get to go get a big old bear hug and lift off to the ground. So I figure it's my obligation to lift him up off the ground.
Before you do that, I'd like to see your cleanliness certification. Have you treated yourself with a UV light? Have you ionized yourself? Have you put yourself in the ozone?
The answer is yes.
I think I got a more point about the air. I don't know whether this is fake news or not, but obviously I got all of the links that have been passed around on social media and things like that. And a friend passed something that was a link to a Chinese. It was like a Chinese research project where they were actually looking, and this was before COVID-19. They were looking at how coughs and sneezes, how they were projected into an enclosed room. So like a room that any one of us are in, if there was 2 people there, they basically had 2 people that would be stood and they would cough, and then they would map and chart all of the particles that came out of your body. And you could see, you could see that the big cloud as it goes out, and then the movement and the swirl of how it stayed in that room and how airborne it stayed in the room for the length of time. It was huge how long these things. It doesn't surprise me about the mass transit places. However, one of the things that they did say was even opening one window and getting movement of air and a circulation of air made a huge difference in removing airborne particles, and the percentage difference that it dropped from having an enclosed room to an open window room was huge. So even little things like going into a hotel room after the guests have stayed and opening all of the windows and leaving them. Yeah, it's going to be cold. It's going to be a cold January in New York, but I'm fairly happy that the HVAC system can kind of kick in and get it before I come and stay. But it doesn't necessarily have to be absolutely crazy hazmat ideas that make huge differences. And one other very quick final point as well. It said that article said, so long the minibar. I wonder if the minibar would actually change and that the alcohol that they serve in the minibar will no longer be drinkable, but will actually be wipes or antibacterial alcohol. Because I imagine they'll probably sell absolute shitload of those as opposed to the overpriced Heineken that you normally get in there.
Yeah. Do you ever see the thing on Facebook? I think it's a cute little meme for restaurant people where it says, I hate to be the bartender after this is all over, because every drink I pour, people are going to be like, that's not a drink. I know how to pour a drink because everybody's been
5 p.m. margaritas, yeah.
That's right. 5 p.m. Oh, yeah, sure. 5 p.m. 5 p.m.
Yeah.
It's just margaritas at 5 p.m. Yeah.
So, not wanting to actually talk about anything hospitality, digital marketing related here. I want just one thing that I come across, and it might be new, it might not be. For people who've been around millennia, you might have seen something like this before. A company called Lion and Lamb Communications out of New York have put together a pay now, stay later, or buy now, stay later for in the hospitality industry. It's very at a very basic level. I think it's a brilliant idea. Very basic level. It's essentially a hotel bond. You buy $100 stay, you let it mature for 90 days, and it's worth $150. So the hotel gets short-term revenue in. The guest goes, and when hopefully when the bond matures, it's not an actual bond. As I'm using a lot of air quotes here. There's no actual legislation around it, and there's no oversight. You basically prepay $100 is worth $150 in 90 days, and hotels are signing up to it in droves. I've never seen anything like it before. It's a brilliant idea of a way a communications company have probably sat around and gone, I've got a great idea. Why do we do this? They've got a website built for them for free. They're not monetizing it at all. They're literally just you, talk to you, put you on your website and go. And the hotels are signing up to it.
Speaking of like the innovation over in your neck of the woods, In1, which is an agency that does Ireland and UK, they've had a certificate engine have been used heavily throughout Europe. And one of the very smart things they came up with was actually using that for refunds of, when you're forced to shut down, you can't hold your clients to non-refundable rates. So a lot of hotels have just been giving the cash back on that non-refundable rate. What they had built with their clients is they're actually giving you a certificate, just like an airline would. Which is you had a non-refundable rate. Here's your certificate. That's good for this long. It allows you to keep the cash on hand of all the non-refundable rates you had on the books, which would have made a huge difference. And breakage on those types of things, breakage on vouchers is so incredibly high that you actually, potentially are, going to have a revenue windfall out of it, while also not doing wrong by your customers. Actually, just here you go as a voucher.
It's not your fault if they don't realize the value of the voucher. Absolutely,
right.
But there's just been a lot of companies seem to be pivoting quite quickly, and necessity is a mother of the invention, and there's a boatload of necessity now in the market. Another company I really like what they're doing. It's not hospitality related, but sort of might be. A company called Palite, who make wooden pallets out of paper. Compressed paper, and this is pretty, industry standard, industry level stuff. You can stand on them, pack them high, and use them like you would a wood pallet. With everyone working from home and everyone being furloughed, they shifted into desks. they've made a desk out of cardboard that it's in 3 pieces, it slots together, 1, 2, 3. It took me about 20 seconds to put together, and both my children can stand on the top of it and jump. It is solid.
Now I'm going to have to ask you to go show us.
I was going to say,
pick up your computer, bring it over. I want to see it.
I actually took it apart, but if you want, I'll go get it and build it.
Go get it. I'd love to see it.
What I would say is, if it took Ben 20 seconds to put together, it must be really easy, because I saw Ben DIY.
Can I kick people off this webinar? It's like an option to right-click and remove from call because he's got
You can mute people. Fun fact. I do it to Robert. I do it to Robert Cole quite often.
Well, speaking of, from a technology,
I'll bring the desk. I'll bring the desk.
I'd love to see it.
I'll bring the desk in next week. And the reason I mention it is going back to the idea about. First of all, I think it's a great idea. I think they're a clever bunch of chaps. Secondly, the anecdotal evidence about the coronavirus and any virus and not living as long on cardboard surfaces because it gets absorbed into the fibers and can't be transmitted as quickly. Do you think, I don't know this, do you think there'll ever be a time when disposable furniture or disposable parts of furnishings becoms a thing?
I think stuff would have to get really bad.
And
the reason I say that is I had mentioned on a couple of shows back that one of the really negative effects of what the industry is going to need to do is we're going to lose ground on our green initiative as an industry. Because here's the thing, I want single packaged everything now. I don't want to use pump soap that I have to touch a pump. I don't want glasses. I want plastic cups in plastic bags. I want my coffee cup to be, paper, not, a regular coffee cup. And so we're going to lose ground on some of the, amazing progress we've made on being, eco-friendly, because you really can't make a consumer trust you completely that, your housekeepers cleaned the cup that's sitting there, that's sitting open. You don't even know if the last person used it, but they may have sneezed near it, and you're screwed at that case. From an eco perspective, we are going to step backwards. And so, that's why I say like a cardboard solution is only going to be if it gets really bad, because you're going to have the backlash of the paper consumption.
Well, I think going to your point on some things, and this is a discussion I've had with one of the hotels we've been working with on the redevelopment of amenities for the room, that they're actually pre-packaged as a single package, everything that is personally used for the room.
And smart.
One of two things, either it's going to be handed at the time of check-in, or it'll be placed in the room as a single package in and of itself, so that you open the package, then regardless of what you said, sneezing, touching, grabbing, throwing, whatever, that's only on the outside of the individual package. So once you've gone through the rituals we're getting more and more comfortable with, unfortunately, of gloves or rags or whatever, tear, touch, jump, throw away all that crap, wash your hands. Now you have your stuff, grocery shopping, as we call it now. You might have that. So we're actually looking at that, and that to your point, it is backwards in the green effort, because all that's additional throwaways, all that's additional stuff, and once used by you, whether it's a plastic cup for you in the room, or whether it's a cover for the remote, or whatever it is you want to call it, those things, you're going to throw away anyway. So. Right. It is going to go a little bit backwards forward. But I think also from an innovation point of view, our ability to use our own item, and I heard this on a newscast, which I thought was a brilliant, of the restaurant guy that was talking about this. They're talking about, how are you going to open up again? It's a small little bar, okay? You got ass to elbow people that stand at a bar. You're not going to be 6 foot apart by any stretch of the imagination, or 2 meters, okay? Even if you sit alternate stools, he's saying, I might take away the whole seating from the bar. I might just, nobody's at the bar, and if you go to the bar, you got to stay apart. Seats, I got to pull out half my tables, and I might have them where there's only 2 people per table. And he says, and what I'm trying to do is that rather than hand out one answer was handing out paper menus to everybody. Well, that's a lot of throwaway. It's like everything's going to be on somebody's phone, because they're already touching their own phone. So you walk in, you hit a local Wi-Fi on theirs, you log into the Wi-Fi, again, capture data is not bad. boom, here's your menu, order like you do, whatever you want. So the server doesn't have to stay in proximity to you. And then it's just a point of delivery. It affects the tipping system that we have established in the States, which is not as prevalent in the world, but, it affects the hospitality aspect of it, but it does provide business service.
Well, and you could get smart, and everyone pays for a shot as a safety fee. And when they walk up to you, you spritz them with some Everclear.
Hey,
they get a little bit of it. Maybe you put a flavoring or a scenting thing in it, and it's an Everclear shot minimum for everyone who walks in. They don't get to drink it. You spray them with it,
straight to the face.
And right as they're walking up to the bar.
I'll be
How
honest.
can I help you?
If my local bar opens back up, I honestly couldn't care about the social distancing.
No one's going to.
Yeah. And there will be a lot of people like that. And I think what's, and too, just being hypothetical about some of this stuff, because we don't know the full effects of all these things. Is there, once you get it, do you have a free pass at that point?
We should have waited. We should have asked Griffin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Griffin got it.
He
got it.
Did tell you guys. Yeah.
It's
Griffin
a good point, actually. You guys raised really good points. The things that are going to go from hospitality are the hospitality part of it. Everything's going to be so much more clinical now. Like the description there of going to a bar that's like there's nobody around. I might as well just stay at home and avoid my family. Like I don't need to go to another bar to just avoid other people.
Just put techno music on and tell them it's a German bar.
When was the last time you came to Europe, Ed? It's a really different place.
We got cancelled, so he hasn't had his German fix for a little while.
Yeah.
Remember when ITB being cancelled was the big news?
It was the. Oh no, what are we going to do? Oh, let's have virtual meetings. It's really important. No, okay.
Yeah, no, that's a couple of other points that I don't know if anyone noticed recently. So obviously Google are giving away free advertising, free PPC advertising,
which is brilliant. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's really, really clever. I think it's any hotel on the planet should be signing up to this and turning their brands on, the branded keyword terms on now, because it is going to be the cheapest CPC you are ever going to get, because there's no competition from the OTAs.
But this is where I disagree, and this is why I think Google is brilliant. Is Google is deploying fake money into the hands of the people who are most likely to bid up all the keywords, so that their keyword cost comes roaring back.
Yeah, through the auction.
Because it's still going to be bidding, right? So how do you ensure that your keyword costs go right back to where they used to be? Well, you just deploy enough money that people will blow first, and they'll blow faster than if it was their own money to bid things up. So that way, when they need to fill their coffers, so I actually think we're going to go from what is currently the lowest cost per click that we have seen since like AdWords first launched, to the highest expense of acquisition. It'll swing completely that way.
What keywords that you're going to bid on there, because on branded keyword terms, so like the Tristen Hotel, there's nobody bidding on that right now.
Right.
So even to one person going into the auction, it's that's fine. So the CPCs aren't going to be that bad. It all depends on where Google's algorithm sets it as being, this is the baseline because of the industry sector that you're in.
Right.
Yeah. So you still, but it's still free money, so I'm not really that bothered, and I'm probably not going to be paying anywhere near as much as if I was competing with Booking on Expedia. But I completely agree with you. If I'm looking for hotels in, hotels near, or all of those upper funnel keywords, then yes, that's going to bring their money back, and the majority of them are more expensive than your brand keywords usually.
Yep.
Well, see, I'm going to disagree with that, disagree with you, disagree with him, but agreeing with me. But Ben and I are on the same side. So,
go on. I'll leave this one with you. Go.
Yes. All right. So, yes, on both accounts, I agree completely with that. That it's going to go from cheapest to most expensive. When the gate opens, oh crap!
Yeah, when that happens.
Right. In the meanwhile, I do think, to your point, Trist, is that from the branded side, keeping it alive and so forth, I don't think it's keeping some semblance of value. So to that point, I'll give to Ed. It's going to keep some semblance of value to it. But the limitation is that some places just can't do business. So all they can do is keep their brand on life support to keep their indexing correct.
Yep.
So they stay in value proposition, stay in market by voice, so that when things do begin to come back again, they don't have to start from zero and get re-indexed and come back into market and so forth. So I don't think
I will tell you, I mean, one thing I've been, giving the sanity check to any of my partners that I've been talking to, who have said, hey, yeah, we've ratcheted down our spend. But we're still spending. Very first question I ask them is, are you spending opportunistically? Have you asked your agency to look at, potentially better keywords for you to steal market share, things like that? And more often than you would think, the answer was no. They just ratcheted down my spend on my current strategy. Yeah. And, and so, one of the things I'd say is make sure, first of all, spend as much as you possibly can justify right now in customer acquisition. This is the cheapest customer acquisition you will ever experience in your career, full stop. So, if you can only justify $100 budget, then it's worth doing. Do the $100. Because understand, you could spend half as you were spending, 3 months ago per month and get double the amount of engagement. So, it's definitely worth keeping that alive, but it's not the same strategy. It's a completely different strategy. And it should be a strategy of stealing voice of market, because bottom line is there are so many hotels that have just cut spend completely. You need to take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, there was an article that I saw on LinkedIn. Ben, you and I was talking about this the other day, where there was analysis of the Great Depression and the brands that were actually spending during the Great Depression, and they looked at brands that cut their marketing back to nothing, the ones that kind of maintained the status quo, and then the ones that went super aggressive. And the survey, the results showed that those that cut theirs back to nothing absolutely failed.
Yep.
Ones that stayed at the status quo, kind of, they were all right. But the ones that aggressively pushed their marketing budget, even in a time of depression, the gains that they made were disproportionate. They were huge compared to if you just maintained where you were now. And it's easy to say this as marketers. It's easy to say, oh yeah, just throw money at it, and when your hotel's closed, it's kind of silly. But when things open up, if your mindset is, I'm just going to dip my toe in here and we'll just see how it goes, you're going to get eaten alive by the other hotel that goes, we're going full throttle here. Here's money, throw it, let's just get market share.
I'd like to add a nuance to what you just said, Tris, because it's not just the consistency of spending the money, it's about the timeliness of spending money on certain things, because there's an added component to this that isn't just about spend marketing, about paid marketing. We have this whole organic vehicle as well. Mm-hmm. And we have a very time insensitive community at this point. There's a lot of time on people's hands that didn't have it. They're reading more longhand stuff. They're taking more time with things. So the trick is not to play the system, is to make the system work the way it has now become designed, which is, and Ed's the first to tell you this, if you don't pay, you don't play. So it's about paying at a time to get the ball rolling. You have a good piece of organic content. Maybe it's a visualization of stuff around the hotel or whatever it is, and you organically seed it and put it into your platform. Well, you're not going to get very far from most engagements just throwing it into your organic conversation. But if you spark it with some paid, very affordable paid right now, nickels, pennies paid in this stuff, and get it rolling, and then you get it into where you get an audience that begins to share and distribute that, and then you feed it again to keep it rolling. When you start seeing your numbers either diminish or plateau, and you keep that ball rolling, and then you augment it with the next thing to the same audience. So it's like literally shoving a ball when it's needed down the hill to keep the momentum going. You don't have to pay all the time, and you could do these with several social organic contents, several organic contents that you do paid programs on Google where you can do your targeting correctly and your demographic targeting correctly and your custom audiences correctly. You can start identifying communication to people that are truly interested in talking to family that have family, talking to couples that are couples, talking to people that demographically or whatever. You could do these things, and to your point, the voice that you keep in the market, people start associating your voice presence. And I'll be, I think I shared this with you guys in the conversation we last had. I keep a list of the hotels that are closed that were competitors of mine in the markets that I still have hotels running. They're not using their keywords, I'll take their And it's not to say, hey, it's nothing more than saying, hey, finding that your hotel of choices are closed, still need to travel, we're still open. It's as simple messaging as that in some ways.
And the hotel can't complain. I know, the different hoteliers, we've used these tactics before, haven't we, Ben? Allegedly.
Allegations have been made around branding. I'll plead the fifth.
It's called demand reallocation.
I like that. Demand reallocation.
No, we are going to reallocate demand to those that want it more.
From those who were too stupid. No, sorry.
No. For those who obviously don't care to
don't care.
Exactly. No, I think the case and point that you mentioned there, Lauren, is when the hotel's closed, it makes total sense that you should be going for those keywords. And in any normal circumstances, if we were back to normal, there would be a whole world of trouble that you'd be in, and you'd be.
And I wouldn't do it. I don't want their name. I don't want to ride their brand. I'm not there to ride their brand. Their brand is them. But right now, their brand is closed.
It doesn't exist.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, the other side of this, we're talking search engine. Social, on the other hand, organic reach on social is at the highest it's ever been. And it makes sense because social engagement is off the charts. Yeah. Every social network across the board grew by millions globally in 1 month. Social advertising is through the floor. Yeah. The spend on social advertising has just fallen out. That's left a void that's being filled by organic reach. You can juice organic reach with dollars, not hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars. You can juice your organic reach with dollars and reach a wider audience socially than you were reaching when you were spending hundreds on social.
Now, I've not checked. I don't think Facebook have announced anything like Google has, with
100 million is coming out. They're deploying 100 million.
Free money too.
I was surprised that Facebook hadn't,
they announced it before Google. It's just Google's number was bigger and it eclipsed them.
There we go. Yeah.
What was it 575 million?
Google. Wait until when I start promoting next week's show that Tristen and Ben were on this show. Oh, we're gonna have it's gonna blow up this whole show. It's gonna be.
We're gonna all have to speak in like Cockney rhyme and slang.
God, why did you have those two Brits on? Never again.
The audience that Tristen and Ben are going to bring, we're going to have to speak in Cockney rhyme and slang, or they're just not going to understand anything.
That's Southern. That's Cockney rhyme. We speak Northern up here, pal. Right.
Stuart's the one from the South. What did you call him? But Stuart, what is Stuart from the South?
I don't know what you're talking about, Lauren.
No. He said I had to call you guys. If he didn't make the show, he said I had to call you wankers. He said I had to call you guys wankers.
In that case, he's a Southern pansy.
Yeah.
He said if I don't make the show, you got to call him wankers. Like, okay, fine.
Well, there was one other article that I saw very recently as well, is that Google are now moving to require verification to open up and advertise on their paid search platform. So you've got to verify your identity, whether that's going to be, some kind of business.
That makes sense. They should have been doing it this whole time to stop, Trump and Boris from getting into office. I
would have chipped in for those ads as well.
Yeah,
I would have.
They do need. They're starting to realize that they have a responsibility that is going to be forced on them to fight against fake news, to fight against the spreading of hate and violence. One of the key ways you do that is you make sure that you know who the people are who are spending to spread content.
So I'm going to disagree with you, Ed, as to the motivation as to why they're doing this. I think they're wrapping it up, and I agree that they're hiding it behind there. I think they're doing it as a fraud protection to stop people trying to, open up and either get free cash or however, potentially, in this COVID-19 world, there's going to be a fair few default.
I thought their grant program required you to have been spending with them previously.
No, not the grant program. I think if you spend a small amount, you can get. Was it £75 or 100?
75, 25. You spend 25, you get 75. It used to be.
Yeah, there's various things. It's normally your much smaller businesses. You're not talking.
Right. I gotcha.
But equally, I think after COVID-19, there's going to be a fair few agencies that may well go into default. And I'm wondering if they're expediting and speeding up the process here to make sure that people are not circumnavigating the rules, because we know that their systems are. You can get around their systems, but they do eventually catch up with you. It's allegedly get around their systems. I've read on the internet.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Your legal advisor on this call, Tristen.
Thank you.
Well,
I wonder if they're doing it more in their own self-interest and wrapping it up nicely as we're fighting.
Well, let's not forget some of the old stories that we had about Big Brother before all of this too. Somebody's going to win the I guess not a war, but win the effort of being the centralized identification process. The easier and more convenient it is between using your Facebook login.
I hope not.
I'm not
needs to stay decentralized. I mean, my gosh, that would be frightening.
Right.
If our internet identity was controlled by a single source.
I'm with you, but I'm saying that's
it would make Twitter worthless.
They're trying to do their thing, like log in with Facebook, log in with Google, make it convenient, make it easy. And then most other platforms start adopting that as a methodology. Eventually one somebody's going to be ahead of the other. And in fact, Google's sitting on Android and everything else. Why not?
Again, I go back to my earlier statement of where you throw AI on top of that, and I, for one, will welcome our robot.
Listen, it is not a coincidence that around the time Google was losing control of their AI, they magically decided to sell Boston Robotics.
Okay. Did somebody watch Terminator?
I think so. I think they realized they were turning into Cyberdyne.
Yeah.
Well, have you seen the video of them kicking over those robo dogs?
That will come back to haunt all of us.
You can imagine
they open the door by themselves.
a dog, like a robot dog knocking on the door, and
then open it, and let
it's
the other dog in.
It's just going to kick you.
Yeah. 4 years ago, you kicked me over on a YouTube video.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
shaking its paw.
But isn't it now? Speaking of that, though, I mean, did you find yourself analyzing the emotions you felt when they were doing that to the robot? Because it was strange. I was like, "Oh man, you shouldn't do that."
Dog.
And then I'm like, "Wait a sec,
it's a robot.
It's a robot."
Yeah. It doesn't even punch a kettle. It's not going to hurt.
Right, but yet because it mimicked the movement and the shape of life. Yeah. You instantly really have this emotion of like, oh, like how could you do that? And then you're like, it's a robot. Why am I feeling this?
But when they saw when they had like the back flipping robots, I didn't go, well, that must have taken that gymnast a long time to practice. That's a skill. It was because the dog was almost cowering.
Right.
I felt that's just not on, Paul. It's a robot again. Right. They've got you again, Ben.
Strange emotions coming from that.
What was that show that was on? Was it HBO or Netflix? No, Dark Sky. Was it?
Dark Sky?
Yeah, it was about tech in the future where people were in contact lenses that you could watch TV on and all this other stuff. And they had those dogs, robo dogs, that were enforcers with the police and so forth. And they were vicious.
Because they've been kicked.
60 years ago. There's a memory file from 60 years ago.
Yeah. In binary,
Well, guys, okay. I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to go again. As it always happens, Lauren, whenever you and I end up talking, I'm just nipping upstairs for a quick chat. I'm going to talk to some ladies and gents on it.
I like getting in trouble with your wife. This is a fun pleasure aspect of this.
Because again, it's like kicking the dog.
I will just cower now. If I bring the desk for Ed next week and it's got a hole in it, she's just beat me around the head with it. You said you were only going to be 40 minutes. No, I will. Right. I'll bring it, Ed, because it's really interesting.
I really want to see it. I think it's interesting.
It is, and I'll send you a link to it as well. So you
I like stuff like that.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Well,
really,
thank
really
you for braving. I had heard multiple times you were worried about getting on with me because I was so mean to Lauren. So I'm glad you braved it. Hopefully you saw that, it's just easy to do to Lauren when you're on this.
Like, oh look, Lauren's like the robo dog, like
right. We're all just kind of kicking him.
It's getting back up again.
Yeah, it's a bobo dog.
But everything is getting stored in his memory, and one day
he will kill me.
He's gonna. That went darker than I was gonna go.
You thought he was gonna knock my soda off my desk.
You'll pull me up into a little HDM pin. Right, gents, this has been absolutely great fun. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us.
I hope you do make it again next week and any week in between all that.
I would absolutely love to. I think there's some really intelligent people, and genuinely excited about the conversation next week with your cleaning friend.
I think it'll be fun, or it will be horrible. But either way, it will be something.
It'll still be fun. Fun.
Yeah, it's still the fun part to it all. And if people want to find you, Ben, or what you do, or anything like that,
I'll be able to give a lot more information about that next week.
Well, I mean, you can at least give them your Grindr account. I mean, that's not going to change.
No, that's going to get me in trouble in my life. If I give that out.
Remember, swipe right.
I'm so glad I got my headphones. And she's like, "Do you think you should watch it?" No, don't watch it, Kim.
No,
nothing happened.
No, it wasn't a good show at all. Totally not worth it.
Lot of you wouldn't find it interesting.
It's very boring.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Ed. Not like next week. It'll be really interesting guests next week.
Yeah. Next week should be so much better than Yes, sir.
I was going to say, at least this time, last time we did a webinar, we mentioned about our boss running through the streets of Boston naked. At least we didn't mention that. Oh, hang on.
Oh. Sorry, Stefan. Sorry. I love you. Right, guys, I'm going to go. I'll catch you guys all next week.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you very much.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, we usually end the show with Robert gives us this wonderful list. As you can tell, Tris, we never really quite get to it.
We become adjacent. We were adjacent to it. We talked. I mean, his list has words in it that we used.
Yes, that's true.
Like why and and hotels. I mean, we used all those words.
And we used hotel once, didn't we? In the time.
Well, actually, technically, I did throw up 2 of his articles, so it wasn't as if it was all for naught. And since he didn't join us for a second week in a row, which in Robert's world is unprecedented, because Robert has been as stalwart about this show as probably I have. And
perfect attendance. I mean,
he usually he's the one that talks.
He has been one of the only hosts to do the show while driving. He's done that twice.
He does have that claim to fame.
Yes.
While driving to Lubbock, Texas, dropping off his daughter to college, he was actually doing the show on his phone. It was entertaining when you go over and hit traffic.
So to explain this newsletter that Robert painstakingly pulls together, for a long time we only had a negative, like the worst story of the week, and he always called it a rut-row, like Scooby-Doo, rut-row. Because of all the negativity that's been going on, we decided that we needed to infuse some positive news, so that is a boop. And so where we used to only talk about the rut row, I'll be honest with you, I only came to this show to talk about the stupid crap that happens in this industry. I am accepting the positive side because I do think we should offset it. So Lauren, let's start with the boop.
The boop, which goes back to I think this is a very neat idea, is the hotels are actually doing broadcasting from their best views. Which I think is nice. I know Margaritaville does their beach view, and people enjoy just seeing what they can't get to. And some of there's more on the links that is there for it, that they're showing just views and so forth of just anticipation, which is kind of fun because that goes a little bit to some of the things we always talk about for marketing. Is more people enjoy the pleasure of their planning of their trip than the trip itself sometimes. And so because of that, this gives them a nice anticipation of, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. I want to look at that and be there, kind of thing. I also looked at it as kind of a mild validation as to the use of video in the future, the value of people's being able to visually experience a place going forward as a part of their discovery process. I thought it added a little validation to that as well.
I think that the video, I think, has been underused, certainly in a marketing form. I think video does exist. Clearly, video does exist about destinations. I don't think hotels have grasped the best ways to market that, and maybe some digital marketers have probably not grasped the best ways to market.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, have you ever produced video?
Me personally,
yeah.
No.
So there's a fine line between good video and garbage.
Yes, indeed.
Like there's not a lot of middle. And when you go to venture into video, you quickly learn how hard it is to be on the right side of that line. However, I will say the opportunity in video that exists right now is the consumer's expectation on quality has dropped dramatically. Yes. When you have major broadcasts, broadcasting from phones and broadcasting from Zoom, that has reset the consumer's expectation on video. And that is an opportunity to finally get yourself experimenting with video.
And it also depends on what demographic you're talking about here as well, because I know, the certainly over here in the UK, the younger generation here that are not yet spending properly. Right. Like my daughter's age, so my eldest daughter's 12, and she is a YouTube and a TikTok fanatic. Yep. My phone's got TikTok on it as well. I mean, obviously, 9th largest social.
Don't say it's because of your daughter.
It wasn't my daughter.
It's not.
Okay, I'm
gonna go find you. I'm gonna go find you on TikTok now.
You will find me. You'll find me doing all my best dance moves on TikTok.
Yeah, of course.
But the quality of the video on some of these channels that she watches and my younger daughter watches as well is not. It's not that fantastic, but they'll watch things religiously. They'll have their favorite people that they follow and they watch. I think the expectation is that older generations, the generations that we're aiming at for hotels because they've got money and they can travel. We've been spoilt with first HD coming out, then 4K, Ultra, all the rest of it. And we're expecting the most crystal clear possible video image that you can see, and the whole situation we found ourselves in has reset that actually you don't necessarily need everything to be immaculately curated for it to be interesting and engaging.
Right. Yeah,
so, a really good point.
And then the other is that unfortunately, greed has been a very big deterrent because people that do offer videography to hotels, even photography for hotels, is wickedly expensive for what they consider the quality that they deserve. They're just in comparison, there are hotels that I had, we have professional photographers coming in and offering, to do sets for shots with, staging and actors and actresses and all this other stuff for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to do a photo shoot that you get 36 pictures out of. And then I go over and I do the same thing for $2,500 with all the same actors coming in and all the rest of the stuff. And they're like, well, it can't be the same quality. Okay. It's not the same quality.
Lauren just values his time far less than the other person.
I said true. I started redoing it. But videography, you do a video for a hotel, they got to think they got to throw in the whole kitchen sink. One video is going to cost them $50,000, $60,000, which is real quotes. I'm not rounding anything. It's walking around. And you have this panoramic, like you said, super high drone shot that flies down to the lobby, zooms in, and it shows all these empty boardrooms, ballrooms, restaurants.
And it looks fantastic. It really does look fantastic when you do it that way. But you don't necessarily need the best. I mean, again, it also depends on what's the market you're aiming for with that video. What's the use of that video? What's it going to do? How are you going to use it? Because for a similar sort of investment, I'm maybe not talking tens of thousands of dollars here, but you can go and get an influencer of some description. And I'm a little bit on the fence with influencers myself, but you can go and get influencers that will make their own video. They'll do it all themselves. May not necessarily be highest quality. Sometimes it's even just on the phone, but they've got a massive audience. And if that audience does convert for you,
I actually think the most worthwhile influencers are the ones that are good at content. It's normally when I'm talking, about influencers to a group or anything like that, I always, say to them, look for the influencers that are actually nothing more than a modern PR company that happens to have an audience. They know how to write good content. They know how to create good imagery. They know how to, tell a story with visuals and sound and things like that. Those should be the ones you target, because if you're disappointed with their network, at least you got good content.
and going back to the video, also to your point, I mean, on the last podcast I did last week, I was showing that tool that I told you about. I think I told you both about it, actually, the Inceptor tool that allows me to connect videos to each other. And I've found some other tools that now I can put some really cool graphics in that uses hotspots for it and stuff. And that interactive video possibility, I think, has something to it where, to your point, it doesn't have to be super sexy, it doesn't have to be super long, but it has to be super relevant. The content of the video is the most important aspect of it. And all too often, these videos, because if they're going to spend that kind of money, $50,000, $60,000, whatever, do video, the owner has to like seeing his building and the porte-cochere and the lobby and all this stuff that nobody else really gives a rat's butt about. Show me the room, maybe. But show me what all the other cool stuff is, and show me with people in it. Because why do I want to see an empty restaurant? That sounds boring. It looks nasty. I mean, sure, everybody's all dressed up nice, but why do I want to know that people are there. I want to see what it looks like that it's being used. These kind of fun
experience I'm going to have.
What am I going to enjoy being there? I'm never going to see that pool pristinely empty like that. I know I'm going to be there with a bunch of other people. What's it look like when there's people around? But having those things, but having them to specifically their interests, so it's not one size fits all kind of thing. And I think, again, going back to the article about this, showing the videos of the views and so forth, learn from the fact that people want to see what they're going to experience. I know it's the best room, best view, but if you had enough money, you could buy it. But at least you know that view exists. And that there's probably other things to see that are just as pretty potentially as well. So in that sense, I think it's a really neat thing that lends to that video value proposition.
Yep. By the way, I mean, rule of thumb with video is if you can't do it well, at least make it funny.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think is though, if you can do funny well, you're on a real winner. Because that.
And you've pointed this out a dozen times that YouTube is dirt cheap.
Dirt cheap,
and everybody's
the younger generation. I mean, I just want to let everyone know, because I'm with you, Tristen. My kids love YouTube, and actually, because of my kids, I use YouTube heavily when travel planning, because I see what they see in it. You actually can understand what the experiences are, and really what are they worth, and what's interesting about them. And I always tell hotels, you need to have some form of YouTube strategy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, I couldn't agree with you more around YouTube and the importance of it. Or maybe there are other platforms out there, but in terms of how younger generations are consuming media and consuming video and imagery and content and marketing messages that come from it, it's totally different. My kids don't watch television anymore, not the traditional way, not the way that I did, and presumably the way both you guys did.
Right.
Where you had to wait for the specific time of day and week when your favorite cartoon was coming on, or whatever it was that you were going to watch. Completely gone. I mean, those days they're over. It's everything's at your fingertips now, and now you've got huge superstars out there that are not in mainstream media. They just don't exist in mainstream media, and
and yet they make tens of millions of dollars a year, and they keep most of it. Like, they're not giving it to agents, they're not giving it to labels, or I mean, there's media has forever changed what a celebrity is.
Yes.
Completely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Massively so. And it's interesting that how that's going to translate in the future in terms of marketing, focus, marketing spend, how are you going to attract the next generation of hotel visitors, the ones who are only just earning or yet to earn at this point in time, because that's where your future is going to lie. the problem you've got is it's typically people who are making the decisions are from generations that are different, right. And we're in such a rapidly changing, period of time in terms of this. You've really got to be on your toes. You've really, really got to be aware of what's happening. I mean, I'm a dinosaur. I mean, in digital marketing terms, looking at the younger people who are coming through, I've been around longer than them, and I've only been in the industry, 10, 12 years, which is no time at all in terms of a career. Yet I'm considered, having been around as, and I'd like to say elder statesman. Everyone else thinks that. So you've got to be able, it's making sure you get the right teams as well. Who's working on your marketing? Have you got a mix of, the younger people new to the industry, not going to have the same experiences in being able to attract probably us three. However,
right. I mean, and one thing to remember, because I've seen our industry lose their mind over kitschy stuff so often. The one thing your experience will do for you is it will remind you not to, think that one way of thinking is the only way. Yeah. And that's what the young people coming in don't know. They all think, think about how big Snapchat was in this industry, how obsessed this industry was in Snapchat. Look at the overweighted spend of both effort and advertising dollars on Instagram, when still Instagram's drive pales in comparison to what Facebook does.
Yeah. Right.
And all of that is making that mistake of thinking that the audience of this new thing are the only thing. Mm-hmm. And also mistaking why Facebook has been able to hold its spot is because it's not overly skewed to one kitschy thing. They spend endless amounts of time on continually improving user experience. And I say that because, like with TikTok, first of all, hotels shouldn't be talking about TikTok.
Nope.
They don't get it. Also, the people who are mostly on there have $0. So if you want to do anything on TikTok, make sure you understand you're talking to kids, and you want to get those kids
for it.
Yeah, exactly. And you want their kids to go up and make the decision. But kind of going back, trying to bring this back to something that makes sense at all is always experiment, but don't fool yourself into thinking that the thing you're experimenting in is a silver bullet, because there's no such thing. Fundamentals always apply regardless of change of behavior.
I'll add into that one statement because I'm dialoguing with a friend of mine that's in charge of a very large hotel group, huge hotel group, hundreds of hotels.
You sound like Donald Trump. Is it Trump Hotels?
No, it's not
huge.
Trump. No. And it's
hundreds of hotels.
Hundreds of
They're the biggest, best hotels. Best hotels.
So he asked me his advice on virtual tours. And so I gave him two answers as which way you're looking at this, 360 tours or just visual tours that are engaging. I says, here's your free options with your 360 tours. I said, go get your Google Maps download app and have them walk around the hotel, stitching together different pictures in different locations, then add the hot spots in those images, which is all free from Google, like a street map, then you can walk through the hotel. And then you do that in 360. I said, or you can go over and do your set and ready banquet rooms and blah, blah, blah. Then I said, if you're doing video, get a 360 camera. It's $299. Put it on a stick, walk around, and then go back. He says, no. Just companies that do this, that can do it at the scale I want. And my argument is this that I'm having with him right now. The reason why you don't have a lot of this content is because of how you're already approaching it again. Who am I going to pay way too much money for? That they can run around to all these hotels and do all this stuff at some rate for each hotel, or you can break it down into different ways. Why not provide the hardware to the hotels, teach them how to use it, hire somebody to edit it perhaps, or teach to edit it, whatever. There's a lot of talented people out there, and now a lot of skill sets that are open and available. There's different ways to scale this, and you'd probably spend a heck of a lot less money doing it internally, but figuring out a way to how to break the pieces apart to rebuild the model, than it is just to say, I'm going to go hire some vendor that's going to overbloat the price because they can go to scale at 300 hotels.
Well, more importantly, you'll also be able to keep it updated. Nothing in marketing is done. Like you don't do a marketing project and then go, all right, we did that.
Look at that again.
Never again. Check.
Put that on the shelf.
We're good. So this idea of, you're right. This idea of trying to find an organization big enough to service them at that scale, the amount of tax that you're paying, basically, laziness tax, call it whatever kind of tax you want to call it. But the amount of margin that you're paying to that organization for being big enough to do it, I doubt you would even, I think you would get pretty close to the quality if you just provided the equipment and provided the strategy. But, oh, by the way, you also may be able to keep your employees, because all of a sudden now you're creating an opportunity for an employee to do something they're potentially interested in.
Right. And they know the product better than anybody else anyway.
Right.
And also, the video itself, how long is this video going to be? For each individual property, how long is it? Versus how long does it actually need to be, and how long are people actually going to view it? You know, right. And my next statement is going to be very generalist, and but you're going to a big organization that can handle all of this, that are going to put a lot of knots at the end of their invoice. They're going to want to give you something that looks, very well curated, very well polished, and it's probably going to be too long for what it needs to be. The reality is the attention span that you're going to have somebody on a video is quite limited, unless they're very, very far down the funnel in any case, and then they might spend a little bit more, but it's still probably a lot less than you think.
Well, and here's the bottom line. I mean, we experimented heavily with video timing. The amount of effort you have to put into earning viewership past a certain time is exponential. It increases. It's harder and harder. If you want a 10-second video, it's far less work. You want a 30-second video, it's going to be 20 times the amount of effort in planning, in editing, in all of that. You want a 10-minute video, you're talking weeks more work.
Oh yeah,
because you have to earn. If you want anyone to get to minute 9, unlike this show, which I'm still not sure why people are watch us into 2 hours. I don't get it. Never have gotten it. After 30 minutes, it's our show. We're more doing it for us than anyone else. But in real video, if you want someone to make it to minute 9, you have to not only be good, it's still a ton of work, a ton of planning, a ton of editing, a ton of reshooting. You're going to film for 10 minutes. You're going to film hours of video.
Well, also too, and it goes back to to do 10 seconds, you can't shoehorn in. When you talk to marketing people that don't know marketing, and they want you to go over and do an ad, and for every reason in the world, they want every little detail about what they're offering in the ad, and you have to keep educating. It's like the ad is not the offer. The ad
but Lauren, the reason they're doing that is because they're not confident in their ability to understand what it should actually say for the audience that it's going to be delivered to.
They sell to themselves, which is sometimes the worst thing to do.
Right.
I've had this conversation countless times, where I've had the marketing contact at a hotel reach out to me saying, my general manager has just done a search or seen an ad or been on social media and they don't like the wording of this. They would like you to change it, please. I said, well, that's great. No problem. Absolutely. You're the client. I will change that. Just need to tell you that this is your best performing ad. It's been in existence for this long and it's making you the most money. If you don't like money and would you like me to put an inferior ad in there, by all means I will do, but it goes against my better judgment. 9 times out of 10, I get the meeting back. I've just spoken to the chairman, the CEO, the GM, or whoever it's going to be. They're happy to keep the ad. Yeah, I thought they would. It doesn't matter what the individual thinks. It doesn't matter what the decision maker thinks. It matters about the audience that you're trying to connect with.
Yep,
that's the biggest thing here. And usually,
the most common mistake I see in marketing is people not understanding that it's not about them. Or misunderstanding. I'm sure you've seen this, especially in the luxury sector. They over-romanticize who their client really is. Yeah. I mean, I've done so many luxury hotel openings where the agencies and the marketing people who work at the hotel are telling me who their guest is, and it's basically a Saudi prince. and And I asked him, what's your target ADR? Oh, like $800 a night. And I was like, Saudi Prince isn't going to slum at $800 a night. They want the $12,000 a night exclusive room with amazing service, and that's it. You're going after middle management of Verizon.
No, it's the Saudi Prince.
Yeah, but I mean, and I'm sure you've seen it. I have been on countless calls where I'm like, so you're saying the person owns a private jet. Like, people who own private jet do not stay under $1,000 a night. It is incredibly expensive to have a private jet. So expensive that you need to not worry about large sums of money as a value proposition, which means you have to be spinning off a ton of money to be in that place. And so you wouldn't stay at an $800, a $900, or even a $1,500 a night hotel. Mm-hmm. You're staying in private villas. You're staying in really exclusive. And this is where
the elite of the elite that you're talking about, and there's still a big subsection of wealthy underneath there, and then there's another subsection underneath there where you're really targeting. Because I recall and I roll this story out all the time, but in these sort of circumstances, I recall managing the digital marketing for a property in London, and it was a high-end exclusive. It's a stone's throw away from our Lizzie. From Buckingham Palace. It's prime real estate location, and it's got a mixture of things. It's got all of these big suites and big rooms, and the marketing messages that came out for that particular property, and they did have Saudi princes, because I remember looking at the Google Analytics and seeing there was a huge spike in revenue coming from Saudi Arabia. I'm like, oh, dude, this skews thing. Why do I need to do that? And say, oh no, don't worry about it. It's literally the prince, whatever. He comes over and takes over for a month. Just ignore that country. And
right.
It's a skew in the demographics.
Right.
But the marketing message that we found that worked some of the best was no different from the marketing message that I would use in any other hotel. It was deal and offer based. Because just because you've got a lot of money doesn't necessarily mean you made a lot of money by giving it away. You still also want to get a deal. You also want value. It's just your value level has moved up. If my value level is, $100 a night, I want to find a good value for $100. My value dollar is, my value point is $10,000 a night. I still want to get value for my $10,000. I want to, I'm still human. I want to get the perception that I've got a deal. Or if you're getting into the upper echelons, the person who's making the reservation for the person who's going to be staying also wants to make sure that they're getting the deal, so they look like they're doing a good job.
Right. Yeah. It's and understanding that, and also understanding that consumer behavior on spending changes based on what they need. When I'm traveling by myself on business, I find it painful to spend over $150 a night on a hotel. It hurts me to do it. I don't care how nice it is. Like, I hate doing it. However, I can't think of a family trip with my kids where I've spent under $700 a night. I mean, and I have no problem with it. Like, I'm all in. I'm like, yep, this is what we're doing. And the reason being is there's a different importance of success. When I'm traveling on business or when I'm traveling by myself, I want a clean bed. I want a comfortable bed. I want good air conditioning, and that's it. Like, and convenience. I want to be able to get to where I need to be easily. Wi-Fi. Even that, because honestly, I'm always disappointed with Wi-Fi, so I've just kind of moved on. Yeah, I use my hotspot. But yeah, I mean, but when I'm with my kids and my wife, this is everything needs to be perfect, or I'm going to be miserable. And so
you've got your boss with you when you're with the family, and if they're unhappy,
I'm incredibly unhappy. Exactly. No, but it's very true. When I get Renee to travel with me, same thing. It's like we find nice places to stay at. I'm traveling by myself. I'll put up with what I would have to put up with.
I love me a Hampton Inn. I love me a Courtyard or a Holiday Inn Express. Perfectly fine with that level of hotel when I'm by myself.
Change. That's going to happen.
Oh yeah. But yeah, when I'm with my family, it's Boca Resort. It's much nicer properties with much nicer amenities and a lot more to do, and everything is expensive. And I don't think about it because I value what it means to my enjoyment of the trip. Why I say that is that is a lot of people. And that's why I always like to point out to marketers that I am both a Radisson customer and a, trying to think about a Rosewood customer.
Yeah.
I'm both, and that's
what market you're in, when you're doing it, why you're doing it.
Exactly. And so
necessity as well. So even with the Radisson, so you're saying you'd never want to pay over 150, but if you've got a last minute trip, you're going to have to pay more.
Yep.
To bite the bullet and you're going to have to do it.
Right.
But with your family trip, you're probably planning that quite some time in the
future.
Far
enough in advance, exactly.
Which goes back to our CRM segmentation conversations we always have about the fact of just because it's Edward StOnge, is it Edward StOnge the family traveler, Edward StOnge the business traveler? And if you can silo what historical travel practices they've had with you or what their interests are for that particular types of travel, and you put that proper content in front of them, then we can send Ed a nice little video about what his kids could be doing, age sensitive, at your location or things around your location, if it's not included, all in one or resort destination based, that add to the value proposition of why, he's willing to drop 3 or 4 coins per night per room.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting as well, because the video that they would market to you, Ed, for your family destination isn't actually marketing to you. It's marketing to your family, but you're the one that's going to be paying the money.
Right.
So you're the one that's going to say yes or no, in conjunction with wife, partner.
With their input. I mean, listen, timeshare companies caught on to this very early. They invite families to bring their children to the timeshare tour because they know if they can get the kid into it, they get a much higher close rate. Because of parental guilt.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for me, I hate booking family holidays because it's so stressful, because my wife has got an idea of what she wants. My kids have got an idea of what they want. And my bank manager is telling you can't afford any of that.
It's true. He's one big thing. No. Hey.
It's I mean, honestly too, and it's the funniest things that make me love certain properties. Like why I love Boca Resort so much is because in their restaurant area, they have a super high-end sushi restaurant right next to like a hot dog place.
Yeah.
And you can order from the hot dog place in the super high-end sushi restaurant.
Kids are happy, you're happy.
It's amazing. Whoever did that, because it's a Morimoto sushi place, and then like a hot dog joint that you can get like grilled cheese and hot dogs and stuff like that, and they'll just walk across the hall and get you your food and bring it back, and you can eat sushi. It's amazing.
Really
yeah. I mean, and it's weird things like that make me go back to a property, because I also rarely frequent the same destination. I like to do something different every time we travel. Because I think that's part of what's interesting about travel is trying something new. However, if you get me with something like that, I come back. Yeah. Like,
you obviously look like you like a good hot dog. So
I do like a good hot dog. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm supposed to meet Kat on a broadcast.
Yeah, I've got a client call. Actually, ironically, I have a client call with an incredibly high-end 30-room property.
Oh, there you go.
Go talk to them about that. So Tristen, you got to come back. You fit into the show well.
That's true.
So Tristen, if people want to find you, how can they find you?
Oh, I'm elusive. I'll find you. No.
You're like Edward Snowden.
Yeah, right. Minus the government and all of them. Yeah. It's similar. Obviously, me and Ben we're in the same boat at the moment. We're currently with Pegasus, but we're not sure for how long that's going to be. We have a feeling that it's going to be imminent that we're going to be in pastures new. So just hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm an avid user on LinkedIn. My name is Tristen Heaword, spelled completely different. I am the only person on the planet with my name and spelling in the way it is. So you can see it on here. Heaword is the surname. If you can find me, I'll happily connect with everybody and anybody.
Well, you're blessed in that sense, because I have a Lauren Gray that looks like my twin. She's on TikTok.
Yeah, I've already seen her. Yeah, not twin, buddy.
No, you don't see the semblance.
No, I've not heard you sing, but I'm going to say she could probably sing a little better.
Yeah, but I guarantee you she has not been struck by lightning 6 times. That guy.
Yeah, so there.
Yeah.
So we'll hear more about it next week, Tris. But like Ed says, you and Ben fit so wonderfully into the show as I thought you would, because you have that great sense of humor, and we get to pick on Stuart because he isn't here, wanker.
Lightnings and everything.
Yeah, right. And Mr. Ed, if people want to know about you and FlipTube, where is it they can go, sir?
You can find out about FlipTube by going to flip.to. You can find me on social media, Edward StOnge. And Mr. Lauren Gray, if people want to find out more about you and perhaps binge watch 3 months worth of the 6 years of episodes of this show, where can they go?
They can go currently to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. Look for show number 246, which is this one, where you get all the show notes of the things we didn't get to go to, links that Robert was so generous in sharing with us, plus also the show notes and timestamps as to when we talked about what. My little note taking in the back. Dell says hi. By the way, I did mention earlier on that you and Ben both have now new fans out of Shanghai.
Oh, wonderful.
They said, love to see British people on the show.
Wow.
There you go.
Well, thank you. I don't know.
I have no idea why they said, but they definitely appreciate you being here now. So obviously, Stuart is not British.
Never was.
Yeah, but he's also not American. What is he? Oh,
like I said, we think he's from Papua New Guinea.
Yeah.
I actually had a hotel in Papua New Guinea that we did the digital marketing for. I'll have a word. I'll find out.
It's like, yeah, they said he's from there for that point. But yes, we have that. And I also will be recording the podcast today called Hospitality Marketing Podcast. I also like to recommend Lily Mockerman's podcast. She just finally got launched and live on iTunes, which is Hospitality Revenue Management. And Holly has done 3 episodes so far, eclectically, on hospitality sales podcast. So there are 3 podcasts that are directly tied together for that. Again, Tristan, I hope you and Ben make it next week, as in every week that it's possible that you can make. And we look forward to having come back to it. And thank you, everyone, for staying and hanging out with us on all the different platforms. And we will see everyone 11:30 Eastern U.S. time next week, Friday. Thank you, everyone.
Gentlemen, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Chris. Good to see you.
See you guys. Have a great weekend.
You too.